I meant mentally if you were gonna show up.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know yet.
Still deciding.
Yeah. Still
Solid.
trying to figure it out.
Did you write, or who wrote the proposed development anyway? The city, the
Terrace Strata.
I don't know how I know I don't want my football.
I want to see football nuts. That's something I want to see.
Let's start off with that. Put it on the agenda.
We can start, and then Travis can join, right, because we have a quorum.
Yep, I think we're solid.
Well, welcome everybody out to our work meeting. So can I get a volunteer for prayer?
I can do it.
And I'll do the pledge.
Or maybe the two guys that aren't here yet do it.
That's what it was.
Travis doesn't pray, but we could do.
Grandpa.
All right, great. So the first action item, I guess the minutes, everything, I didn't see anything out of order on the minutes. They look fine
Looked good to me.
to me. And then the first one is that conditional use permit that wasn't, we didn't receive the notices in time, so that's back, and it's the only, I guess it's just a half foot of height that they're going for, and 500 square feet of building. All the other setbacks look fine to me. Everything look fine from the staff side of that. Any other questions you guys have on that one? And then this other one, I think it was just a height.
I think it's height and size.
Because of the lot size?
He's in an ROS zone. And so
Oh,
he
he's
can
an
be-
ROS
He'll
zone.
be 18 feet high, and he can be. I'd have to pull that. Let me find it. But go ahead. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's full. But I'll find it.
Oh, I thought it was in a R2, or I thought it was on a third of an acre.
Maybe the zone was ROS,
Yeah.
which is a discontinued zone. That's what he's under. That's how we processed it.
Oh, okay. And then I'll turn some time to you, Malcolm, to present both those
An ROS zone needs a conditional use above 1,200.
1,200, okay, so 200.
Yeah, we'll have a slide for them both.
What's the height in?
The height in an ROS zone
18.
is 18 feet. Yeah.
We didn't change anything in that zone, did we?
We didn't want to make adjustments. We really just focused on our most predominantly
Yeah.
targeted zones for.
The address on that one, like you drive, what butts up to the back of that, like, is actually West Haven, right?
Yeah.
And they've allowed,
The same type of stuff.
I'd say even bigger than what he's requesting.
Yeah, West Haven will allow bigger.
Like, I feel like the neighbors along his back have bigger buildings than what he's.
Opportunities for the same or bigger. I drove by that house actually, and I think it'll do improvements to that property to allow him to have a shop because he had a lot of vehicles. So I think the neighbors will actually be thrilled to see. He had a side-by-side in the front yard. He had 2 trailers on the side of his house. So I think that there's a potential that it actually will improve the neighborhood, allowing him to have some storage space. So, I mean, based off of a 2-second drive-by, I thought it might actually improve the opportunity for the neighbors.
One side note on that, just since it got brought up as it relates to this, a lot of cities do like a, hey, how are you, 25%, just, you know, and a lot of cities just have a threshold of that, we've always done conditional uses, we might wanna look at a way to approach that, but let's, let the change we made sit for 6
Settle.
months, build it
Right.
for a while, see how the application, it
Yeah.
could settle a lot, we don't see as many, but eventually we could look at a change, and then if we did get a little more aggressive setting, we're not doing oversized CUPs, it's, code is aggressive, and like the, a lot of other cities, like, you can't go past 25 ever, it's specifically what it is. So, but right now it still works, well, I think we have had less, I know it feels like a lot lately, but there have been multiple that have called in, oh, you need it, I don't know, you don't need it, and they're just gonna do it. So it's been effective to an extent.
I think that would be good data to bring back, just to see how many have gone through
Yeah.
without it versus how many we're seeing to see.
Yeah, we can look into it further, so.
Hey, Travis?
Apologies, my boss called. Not the one I'm married to, the one that I actually work for.
They were gonna force you into the prayer, but I told them I wouldn't let you do that.
Hey, be careful what you wish for. It might be a little more uncomfortable for you than you think.
Now I want it.
Yeah, I know. Let's get some excitement in here.
Let's get to liven this place up.
Scratch my name out.
All right, you're volunteering. Travis it is. Travis or Bryce or Blake, did you have anything on the minutes or?
No, I thought the minutes were clean.
Okay.
You just gotta read them better.
And briefly discuss the Duboc permit, but it's pretty much just the same one that'll be public heard that did last time. It has the correct notices, so they're just asking for the 500 square feet allowance and then the half-foot high on the building, so.
Hey, on those, somebody refresh me, why are we doing public hearings on all those conditional use? I know it's an option, right?
Well, this one was 6 inches over.
Well, that one makes sense for the height,
Well, I
but
don't know
is
about the other
anything
one.
outside of spec, are we gonna do public hearings on, or what do you guys?
Only if it's outside of spec.
Yeah, why,
As we're on the next one, or like, I thought all of these had a public hearing.
Yeah, and that's what, do we have to have a public hearing for them, or is it just the right thing to do, which I'm okay either way. I just had somebody reach out and ask me that, like, do we do public hearings on everything? And I'm like,
I mean,
not
in
everything.
my opinion is anytime the public has an opportunity to express their
Yeah, that's not a
feelings,
bad thing,
like
so.
well, we're legally tied by what we're legally tied by, but
Yeah,
I'd love to hear their opinions
Like,
one way or the
yeah,
other. I think it helps us be better serve the community.
well, it doesn't hurt,
Doesn't hurt anything, like,
Let's be able to express their
Yeah.
concerns and make some.
sometimes it's helpful and sometimes our hands are tied by existing ordinances and it doesn't matter anyway, so. If it was my opinion, I would say let's hear them just to hear them.
Yeah, I like it, I just, somebody asked, so I figured I'd ask the question.
Seems like if you send the notice out and then you don't give them a chance to come in and express their
Right.
Yeah.
concerns, is like, we send the
Then why
notice
do we
out
send a
and
notice?
By the way we're doing this, not by the way we're talking about
because
this.
there's quite a few of them now that just get approved.
That fall.
Well, yeah, they're just gonna fall within guidelines, so maybe that is the better play if it falls, because if it falls outside of guidelines now, it's
Then
big.
we, or they have a small lot, like the
Yeah.
ROS zones or R2 zones.
so it's over by the 500 feet and the half-foot height right there. But as far as the building looks, it doesn't look excessive in what I reviewed it, everything else looked fine. And then the bottom one on B, it's in the ROS zone that Malcolm told us, and so it's 1,200 square feet there and 18 feet high, not 1,800 feet. So the additional feet. But surrounding buildings appear to be as large as this one
Or more.
or bigger.
Okay.
As you look at it on the, so I think both of those are pretty straightforward. See what the public has to say, but does anybody else have any concerns about either of those
No, sir.
conditional uses? Okay. Now we are on to discussion items would be the group home, he added the verbiage that we requested at the bottom there. I read through that and thought the changes addressed some of our concerns and answered.
Yep.
Hopefully that memo made sense. This should be pretty simple.
Yeah.
With the group homes, we had an application, just to give perspective. And an old one, the other one, the original. And we filled it as a conditional use. But as we dove into our code, our prior definition of family
What are
was
the,
up to 8, which was aggressive for just a permitted group home use, right? I don't think it was intentional. So this change modifies our family definition, which trickles into our group home.
definition, or what
Definition.
would require conditional use, right?
Yeah, and then it just spells out. So essentially, if you had a group home of 4 and under, or a family, in this case, we're defining them similar, you could principally permit that, and we just move forward. It still would have to comply to the permit process here. I use that term loosely, they would just have to go through an approval that's in there, but then 8 and under would be conditional use in residential zones as is required, and then everything above that, and that's where it might get a little confusing, and I don't think it's pertinent to the approval. I think this shores up our group homes, but everything 8 and above really should be housed in that related discussion, where we need to have broad definition or comfortable definitions for, if we're gonna have something that's more commercial based, right, like a children's treatment facility, or we've had a drug and alcohol application. We need to make sure we eventually, I'm not saying for tonight, but those are things that we wanna make sure we understand what zones those are permitted in and what the numbers are. Sometimes the numbers feel a little arbitrary.
Right.
Like a daycare home group is 6, I don't know why that's not 8.
Why is foster home 7? Why don't we push that back to 6 to 12 like we do the treatment facility?
That's the point, they're just arbitrary a little bit, so we could probably tighten them up as we go through. We could pick some of discussions on as we move. I think another one,
Did he have any data from
Nick.
state code about this?
Nick will, yeah, he said he was
Okay.
prepared to discuss it.
That portion of it? Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess that's all I'm saying is.
At least make it look a little more intentional.
Yeah, group
Instead of
homes
just
have,
random.
group homes have certain requirements that we're now meeting. We actually were excessive in our allowance. Now we're tightening it a little bit, complying and making sure we're comfortable. Then everything 8 and above, really we want to be comfortable with the commercial applications of these different things, whether they're in a residential zone or in a commercial. Some of these are, I tried to go through and kind of call out where they're conditional and things like that to give you just a rough idea. But if there's one particularly that, I know drug and alcohol was one we went through a couple times. Those are conditional in office and residential. Some of them are not. I don't think they're permitted. It doesn't look like in commercial settings, but are they permit? We never really got to the bottom of those. Are they required in residential? I don't know. So if we wanted to revisit some of those, we could. Or if
Felt
we-
like we couldn't restrict them in that due to disability housing requirements, but.
Yeah, we may not be able to, but just anything above 8 is going to get classified into something. So
Yeah.
just we don't want any to be any surprises of we get an application for 8 or more in a residential zone for you see the examples.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think our group home one will be really in line with what's permitted, and it should be pretty easy to handle. I don't think we'll see many applications for it. I think state law will dictate them, and we might get some conditional uses here and there. But even that one was 4 total residents, and that's the state license. They had to call that out. So it's just not one we would. It's just permitted. It's just any place would permit that. We just sometimes we get outcry or we have to work on stuff that really just isn't. We don't have control over, right? So why?
Why have it in
That
there?
Wi-Fi, it just is what it is. So
Yeah.
it's state regulated, taken care of.
discuss the development agreement with Nick as well.
Yeah,
Doing
because
it.
Nick had a conflict, we didn't know that. I don't know if Nick can come to work meetings or not, that's something you guys can talk to him about, but either way, had a conflict today. But I realized that if you guys are gonna prepare to make a recommendation on this, you're gonna have a lot of questions for Nick, so it's a little bit piecemeal. We're gonna have a discussion here, we'll talk with the development team, and I'm hoping you guys can get your questions out, and then I know you guys don't get a lot of opportunities to talk to Nick, so it's it'll be a little weird to do in the meeting, but
That's all right.
we need time to talk to him, so
Yep.
I want
Yep.
you guys to have time.
Alright. Well, anybody have any other questions, or we'll bring Tara Scott up and let them kind of present what they have for us?
Yep.
We are ready for you when you are.
I want you, the engineer walks through the door. So, I'm glad he's here. Appreciate that. So,
I know we're a little bit early, but
good to be back with you.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Yeah, my recommendation on,
Fancy chairs.
my recommendation on time allotment for this would be
Right at the
that you
head.
present the concept.
We'll split it here. I'll put Troy in the.
Yeah, if we have you guys present the concept, I have Troy's slide here, present the concept over 15, 30 minutes, and then I just highlighted a few things that I think are pertinent for your guys' discussion that we'll go through slide by slide, and we'll take the rest of the 30 minutes to 40 minutes to go through that. But yeah, Troy, if you can introduce your project, I've got your slides here.
Yeah, and then part of this is the development agreement. We're trying to mesh, the written with the development agreement. So we want to make sure we've got uses, conducive to what you want there. So,
Yeah, we'll go through.
well, you get a chance, if we get time, I'd like to hit them all.
Yeah, I'll make sure I address kind of the way we're planning on approving it, and that is with the developer's agreement. Make sure we get the uses identified, so we'll talk through that.
So
But
you
yeah.
have Troy's booted up there.
Yeah,
right here.
Yeah, Troy, if you just take however long to introduce the project, then we'll go through the DA, kind of through pieces I think are really important for them to give input, and then we'll move forward with that.
Okay, hopefully most everybody's familiar, and I'm Troy Wolverton from AWA,
And I'm Stuart Adams with Terra Strata, the developer.
but hopefully everybody's familiar with the majority of the project is pretty much those hay fields there that are mowed, that you can kind of see in the picture. To the left of the project is a residential subdivision existing, and the smallest lot that I could find in there was about 12,000 square feet, and ranging, probably the biggest one, there might be some on the cul-de-sacs that are a little bigger, but anyway, they're a little less than what I call a third of an acre, or 15,000 square feet. As you move to the north, you can kind of see there's the road continues up, kind of makes a wind there north and to the left. Those are 1 acre lots, and then straight north, they're 2 to 3 acre lots. As we really tried to figure out what's the best way to kind of lay out this property, we really kind of looked at how do we transition densities and different things away from the commercial that's proposed. So keeping that in mind on the north, from a land planning perspective, it's a little hard to tell, will those 2 to 3 acre lots one day have the rear portions of those lots infilled, or will they continue to remain 2 to 3 acre lots? And I'm not trying to make a prediction for any landowner out there. I'm just saying one day it might make sense to infill those back areas. I don't know. So as we look at this transitioning away from the commercial, just kind of keep that bigger picture in mind, if you will.
Well, and it's, I think it's also important, it's not on this map, but if you go even further north, that's my neighborhood, and those are 3rd acre lots.
Pretty
In
exclusive.
Upper Landings.
Correct.
So you've got the lower density there, but then it gets more dense back in my neighborhood.
Okay.
And then one change to the original project, some of you may have seen the original project. I did not include what I call Connie's property.
I was gonna ask about that.
And we have since acquired Connie's property.
Okay.
So,
I assume
So
so with how the
trucks.
line out looks now.
yeah, so that's a change, and you'll see it here clearly, but I wanted to make sure you knew that.
So 3 paths are currently shown across the front to the left that I would say is a little different than what has kind of been shown
That's
on
Connie's
before.
property there.
Yeah.
And then what we tried to do is just really kind of infill in the back portion what we've kind of always called residential, but to really just kind of give an idea of what it might look like. And this is where it becomes really important to get a feel for you, the local commissioners, as well and get your recommendations of, you know more about the local conditions than I do. I'm originally from a little bit further north, but Hooper's changed a lot, and so has a lot of this area around since I lived up here. And so this is where it's an opportunity for us just to listen and to learn from you as we talk about this.
And can I maybe go up to the screen? I have a tough time without, I'm a physical guy, I'd rather have a paper map than I would a screen. But before, I think Connie's property was probably right in here somewhere.
Yeah.
So before, we showed this as a PUD, just this piece right in here. And now we have this additional right here. And there is a thought hanging in the back of at least my mind. It's right now, because of Amazon and most home deliveries, small box retail pretty much doesn't exist anymore unless you're in what they call a power center. You have like Riverdale or someplace like that, or a very high density, just because there's not enough volume for them to survive, because everybody's like my wife, where trucks show up quite often at our door, and it just, these small box retailers are not staying in business. So to put small box retail in here doesn't work anymore. But there may be some. We did a Smith's with the EOS next to it in Springville. I have no idea where that demand is there, but that could be there too, maybe. And I just haven't figured out whether there's demand. I don't know, because it's been so fast that we acquired what I call the Connie piece.
Yeah.
So right now we're putting in residential because we don't think the market's there. We don't think there's an EOS that'll come here. We don't spread that rumor around, okay? Well, we have no public meeting probably here, but we don't know what's there, but that's at least something that was in the back of our mind. But we've adopted residential there instead, okay?
A lot of the pad details that are shown there, and the pads being the buildings that are out away from the major anchor, are what could go there. And we would be able to say for certain that the fuel center would be there and the grocery anchor would be there. The others are tenants that, they're representing tenants that Stewart's worked with in the past in other shopping centers. But really it's based on demand, getting this out there and so forth. But really we can't do any of that until we've established zoning and basically a framework to be able to build this thing out.
And I'll spend just a minute on that and listen. In Kaysville, the mayor in Kaysville was very aggressive and wanted a Kneaders and a Jimmy John's.
Specifically.
And we actually went to Kneaders and told them the mayor wanted them. And they ended up in Kaysville. And we did the same with Jimmy John's. Now, I don't know whether that'll happen here, but we don't know whether it'll be Jimmy John's or Jersey Mike's. We don't know if it'll be America First or Golden West or Key Bank or there will be a bank here. I can almost got a credit institution, somebody will come. And I don't know what kind of sandwich shop, but that'll all be determined. We really can't go talk to them very well until we're down the line with the city.
So would your plan be to build the shells and then try and fill the shells, or build the suit? So they'd sit as empty pads until you had somebody interested?
Well, we won't start, we typically don't start an inline shop building until we have half of it sold.
Fair.
And then after we have half of it sold, we'll spec the other two. But most of the demand, we have high demand for drive-ups. COVID changed the market significantly. And then we'll have maybe some single pad users, whether you won't get it. We'd love to have Chick-fil-A, they're probably not gonna come, okay? But you'll get some single pad users like that type of user, whatever it might be, okay?
Troy, how much of the Connie's piece is residential, which is this green line right here, the blue and green? That,
It's about that green line was where her
It's-
stopped,
Yeah, that's,
so these
based
units,
off this map.
these units here are new residential units that
Yeah,
have never
they
been contemplated, right?
that's correct.
And is that detention basin, what you've got there?
Yeah, where it says commercial, yeah.
You would be open to a flex space scenario in this spot right there?
What kind of
If
space?
we were to rezone it as like a flex space, it could become residential or commercial.
Yes, I would love that zone. I would like the time to go look for it. I was gonna ask you whether you'd look at something like that, because mixed use or whatever you might call it, flex zone, I don't care what the name of it is. But I would like, if you want it, that'll be your decision, not mine. But I would like the opportunity to go to try to look at something additional, if you could do that for me, okay? Yeah, great.
I think in a limited application, it would make some sense on a small piece that maybe borders the commercial like that, but we'll talk more about it as we go.
We do need a place to put stormwater, but if there were a use for that, and again, there is a lot of information we don't know about this property. I don't know anything about the geotech, I don't know the depth of the groundwater, I've been told it's high. I don't really know the topography of it yet, we're in the process of flying it and establishing topography and getting more information gathered. We do need a place to put stormwater, and like I say, we've reserved a spot, but that spot might have to be a little, modified if that comes out.
And that spot is specifically a retention basin concept at this point? Or would you consider like a storm tech system under the parking lot or
Could be
other
a storm
potential
tech.
options?
A lot of that depends on the depth of the groundwater too.
True, yeah. You'd have to have some kind of percolation with a storm tech.
And that's kind of why I
You
threw
got
it
it
out.
right on.
We got a lot of options, but we just don't know for sure the details.
Yeah.
But the flex space idea, a dental office, some kind of a professional office, they do tend to work in where it does say commercial. They could even go out more on the frontage for that side as well. But again, it just kind of depends on what Stuart said we find.
Yeah, we can't put drive-ups everywhere, we know that, but we usually put them on the ends of the buildings and then fill the middles with, hair cutters,
So,
dents,
because we don't have this,
exercise shops.
that northeast two parcels up there, they're empty.
Point to it, we don't own them,
They're
Their homes,
Yeah,
they got homes on them.
Yeah.
but we have talked, those are part of the family. And we are rezoning those in our rezone effort. And again, the farthest north piece, Malcolm, that parcel right there, my understanding is it's an acre lot almost, but even though it's almost an acre lot, it doesn't have the frontage to be built on it. So they would like to build eventually on that for one of their kids, I think. And so we're rezoning at half acres zone, and the half acre zone isn't necessarily for them to divide it to half acres. It's in order for the frontage to work so they can build on it, because the frontage requirements are different in a half acre zone than they are in an acre zone. Did I explain that right?
Yep.
Yes.
So that is part of the rezone application, that's part of blue is being asked to be rezoned.
So under current zoning for what's there right now, for all the property, and then you're picking up the Christensen property,
Yeah. the other
that's
thing.
roughly 70 homes could be built in there right now without any zoning changes,
Probably.
without, okay.
Malcolm would have to tell you that.
And how many houses are on here? Total residences,
129,
129?
is that,
And the residential portion is 26.06 acres currently shown. So was the 27 based on an acre, 1 acre lot? Is that what you were?
Yeah,
based on
just,
one lot? Okay.
because how many rooftops
Those are good numbers.
could already be there versus what we're asking to increase to?
Okay. It's a good number.
And
So the Ts, the sixplexes there that are shown, and then there's some other smaller units, those are the townhomes intended to buffer. We have direction from Stuart, that main road up the middle, we gotta fix that, he doesn't really like that. But
yeah, I think I'd rather open space or spots buildable area than I would roads, and I think you only need, I'm hoping you only need one road going.
Well,
Well, 'cause
will
that,
DOT even allow it, since it's a state road, and you only can get so many
Yeah.
openings?
Yeah, so,
well, 'cause that, what kind of concerned, because when I saw this, that kind of reminds me of that Smith's property in West Point,
yeah,
and the housing, it's messy right there.
so we're
The way-
gonna,
That collision.
we're gonna work to try to clean that up, so we'd like your, they've got a lot of work to do on the site plan, okay?
I know the engineer who did that shopping center, he was younger then.
He's not talking the shopping center, he's talking about the residential.
Yeah,
Yeah,
residential
yeah,
lots
and-
up against
and
it.
that was
It's
of
a
course
weird
unrelated.
collision of roads and.
It's, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we can work on that.
Behind those, the multifamily, the center you're referring to, that's where the detention business.
So we're struggling a little bit with the sewer lift station, not only paying for it, but locating it. Troy, I don't know if you want to
It's,
address that.
yeah, and it's probably easier to point, I should have brought a laser and I just didn't. But, what has been discussed, it was originally slated to kind of be in about this area here. In fact, I wanna say, yeah,
Right
it was
there.
like right in here.
Yeah, right in there.
It really doesn't fit there is the problem. In working with the grocery maker, there's been some interest in possibly cornering it here. We don't want, obviously, it to be an obstruction for this, but the thought was what could be a pad, maybe it's a place for a structure. We also talked about putting it back in this location. It just required quite an expense in additional infrastructure as well as the wet well would have to be 2 feet deeper. And there was just some concern with the groundwater table.
From a maintenance perspective, it would potentially cause a maintenance nightmare to have it in the corner of the parking lot. If we need to get in there quickly with a vac truck and it's blocked off by cars that are in there,
Sounds like from experience.
it might cause some headaches to get into a lift station in the corner of a parking lot. Yeah, then it would redesign the parking lot, I guess, huh? But,
We'd cut down some stalls right in here and be able to provide the access.
yeah, that would be my main
We
concern
want
with,
to make sure.
in the busy zone, getting in and out in an emergency, nothing's worse than having a lift station firing up,
We'd probably circle it with a drivable area.
a pull through, yeah,
But
something.
like a road around it.
But that's the kind of thing
I like that.
when we get to that point, the thing I'd like to say makes me a little bit different is I want to talk to the people who maintain it and make sure that we are addressing those concerns.
So that's an issue. That's a site plan issue. Pretty good one right there, yeah, thanks.
So this one just kind of focuses a little bit more on the commercial, and we did try to provide a little bit of information. About half of it is the commercial shopping center, the 22 acres, and just kind of showing some of the information.
Didn't you cut down the store to 100,000
Yeah, you're
square feet?
124, you're very observant there, it's now 100. Do we have any elevations?
Yeah, there's one, and then I
So
know
we're
in the information
doing
sent out
this
they were
in
doing
Eagle
it.
Mountain. This is not a typical Smith store, but it has more of a rural feel to it. And it's got the barn doors, and it's got some things that are kind of more untypical of Smith's.
Yeah.
So we've made the store a little smaller. We've heard, some thoughts about that. And we've tried to make it more rural, have a feel for it.
What are they pulling out? Clothing? What comes out of that
You're
20,000
exactly
square
right.
feet?
Apparel is
Oh, man, that's the only reason I want to go there. That's why I shop at West Point.
Okay, all right. Well,
Burton, you'd scare.
we're not done with Smith, so keep talking, okay?
We'll pull out
That's
the
good,
eggs for you.
that's good
Put
input.
insurance.
I want to
Take
go
out
back to.
Take out the cheese station.
Jeez.
I agree with that.
We don't need Boar's Head.
No.
We got plenty of cheese, so.
That's right.
Keep going, Troy, this is
So
fuel.
this is
Fuel
the
up
fuel
front.
center, and just to kind of give you an idea of what is kind of a standard package fuel
How many
center.
pads, not pads?
Is
This
this
is a
representative of the actual size?
Yeah, this is what we refer to as a 7 MPD or a 7 multi-product dispenser. It ends up with 14 fueling stations.
14.
Seven lanes, 14
Seven.
14
The
pumps.
back 7 stations would have diesel, and then the forward 7 stations would just be regular nonlead. And there hasn't been a determination of whether they want to go E0 here. Most of the places that we're now, most of the fuel centers that we're building in Utah, to compete against Maverick, they have made the decision to also have E0 as well.
Yeah.
And that just means that there's a 3 or 2 hoses basically in the front 7 become, they just have a blue hose for the E0.
Fuel.
This is a depiction, again, the elevation that was provided for the Smiths, again, we were seeking input. We have heard, you know, would Smiths be opposed with wagon wheels and a hitching rail? And I took that back to them, and they said, this store that we're doing in Eagle Mountain and the only other places of Fry's in Gilbert, Arizona, are the 2 places where they've used this elevation. And they just said, why don't you show them this and then see if you can get some additional feedback on what they might like. And then these pad elevations are really just drawing from the materials. Every one of those materials up on the materials legend, it just says color match the grocer anchor, and I just covered that up because at this stage we've just asked to not indicate who the grocer anchor is until they've got more of a commitment to what the zone
This
is
is Little
likely to be.
Unique here, they are in front of this.
Yeah. And then this just kind of focuses on the residential portion. The townhomes, of course, are the T units. Those are currently drawn at 30 feet wide across the front and 50 feet deep. A real townhome, if Stuart, he's going to turn to me and say, you're drawing too big.
They're 20.
They're really 26 by 46 or something along that line. It's just easier at this stage to draw the 30 by 50. And then we'll dial that in. It allows us to kind of get a little tighter as we learn more information. The Type 15s that are shown up the left side there, they have 100-foot fronts on them, so they'd easily accommodate a home with a 3-car garage, and then they are 150 feet deep, so that makes them pretty much exactly 15,000 square feet. The homes along the top are also the same way.
They wrap the 3rd acres around the top because of the.
To transition to the other
Just
existing
just the
homes.
way those were half acres before.
And if you remember that first slide,
So
that's
we
why
need
that was
some
important.
direction there, some real direction as to whether that's even, we don't want to bring something in next month if that isn't possible. Okay, so that's probably something we need to hear from you.
Where are the Type 20s? Why are they on the legend?
Those
It's
were
really,
previous half acres across the top.
originally a band was provided to show that there were going to be half-acre lots. When we really got dialing into it, it just kind of didn't make sense to put, you know, if you think about a half-acre lot and the size of home that goes on a half-acre lot, that's $1 million home. And does $1 million home want to look across the street at some smaller clustered cottages and so forth? So when we really got into what could fit on the property, it just kind of didn't make sense. But we did want to acknowledge we tried, and that's the reason why they're not shown. Those 15s along the top used to be the half acres, and when we really kind of, like I say, got into it, it just didn't quite make sense.
Still really nice lots, they're 100 by 150. That's a really good lot,
That's
So
a great one.
I don't see,
really functional lot.
I mean, we talked about that kind of that flex zone at the bottom. I don't see a park. I don't see any green space at all in that.
If the commercial down at the bottom became the flex space, we would need to have, and really we need to work with Stuart on the value of the property, because if there's a price point where underground detention becomes affordable, or it makes sense. And if the square foot value of the ground and so forth gets to that point, then there's a justification to go underground. But if not, then you want to use the open ground. And where the commercial is could be multi-use, and I would agree with you that we know that's needed, but we just wanted to get some direction before we really
So the
made a
location,
swing at that.
the location of that has functionality as far as the flow of water, but where that commercial part is, that is detention basin, that can actually be a park.
It could be multi-use.
Well, and it's just an opinion, but I don't think that's the right place for a park.
Yeah, so that's what,
Out against the road
Thank you.
or against the
With the commercial.
Yeah.
You're,
So that's good. We're hearing that input. That was one of the questions I had, so I'm
The-
glad that you brought it up.
The smaller lots with the Cs on them, we would just refer to those as cottages. They would just have a small single-family home on them. And then the CCs are what's referred to as clustered cottages, and you can see that they would share a drive aisle, basically, to get to those units. Now, the smallest unit here that's shown is 1/10 of an acre, and that's 4,356 square feet. There is a reference to a development up between Far West and Plain City. It's actually developed in Weber County, and that development by Nelson Homes has been referred to a lot, both by people from the city and others, as maybe something that might work here. And so we looked really closely at that development. We pulled the design standards, a lot of information, and have really geared this toward that concept. Now, as we present it, it'll be an opportunity to say, I don't want you to have to hold your nose to accept it. It's just, is that palatable or not? And if it's not, then we'll look at it. What I wanted to point out, though, is the lots in the development to the north that I referred to, they're 0.06 and 0.07 acres, so they would be a little bit larger, but not a lot larger. And I pointed out the smallest lot in that aggregated area.
In the cluster cottages, how wide is that drive? And I'm assuming they're going to have garages, like single car garage facing each other.
They would, yes. The driveway, or referred to a lot in these type developments as an alley, and the driveway would then offload from that driveway.
How wide is that?
The driveway is
The
20 feet.
alley.
20 feet.
Is 20 feet, yeah. And
That's
then the
about the
cottage.
size of the roads
That's
out
about half
west.
the size of your truck.
My road's 21 feet wide.
You're not getting your truck in that garage.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think that's a lot of the problem is their garages aren't very long, and the driveways only.
Yeah, they're shallow.
So I know in the Weaver County, when he's referring the JDC Ranch is referring to, Weaver County made them say you have to have so much of a driveway. So if someone has a Toyota Tundra, it's not sticking out the back.
basically, you have to seat the house back far enough on the
Yeah.
lot to allow
You have
for
to set it
so
back
much
so
driveway
it can make a
space.
turn.
So that way you can actually fit something there.
Yeah.
Without it sticking into the 20
Get
foot
something
wide.
like a
I noticed
smart
that at
garage.
JDC.
Yeah.
If you can kind of envision those lots, the idea is for those, the home would face towards the driveway.
Yeah.
And the idea is that up 10 feet of the front yard would be taken up by the driveway. Now, in a lot of these design standards that we looked at, they have 25-foot setbacks. So there is a little bit of a 15-foot front yard. Now, that could be adjusted a little bit. They also have like a 30-foot backyard. Now, if the home were able to be shifted back, say 25 feet, they could put 5 more feet in the garage.
Yeah.
So again, that's kind of the feedback, again, that we're looking for. And if we want to accommodate, whether they're Silverados or King Ranches, 4-doors, well, I don't want to take sides, so. But
Well,
that
I
could be
think
a-
what ends up happening with those smaller, shallower garages, they end up just becoming storage sheds.
Yeah.
And then you've got cars spread everywhere, trying to find places to park.
And we don't want that.
So that's another thing we'll work on. And we're a long ways away from a site plan approval, but we're trying to give you, but you've got to have something to base your rezone on too.
Sure.
So we're trying to be a little as transparent as we can to say this is what the zone may do. And then if we did it, you're saying, I hear the open space and I hear some comments about making sure the garages are functional. And the turning radius is so functional.
I thought back in
That's
the early stages, we talked about all these houses around here and then having a park or a
Green space.
green space
That's where it should be, is in the middle
somewhere
of the
here,
house.
so all these people had somewhere to do whatever from here, and from here. But that would mean maybe you put another cluster of T's down here,
Yeah, I would almost.
take away your
Question is
And even if you shifted as far as getting the right amount of units, even if you shifted this cluster to here and have green space here in the center, It's definitely a far more functional
Then you may be
concept.
able to get on the back.
Are you saying you gotta have 129 doors to make this work? Is that what, or is that just
That's a Stewart code.
No, we're saying we're trying to make it work the way the city wants it.
Okay.
I mean, it has to work for both of us.
Yeah,
It has to make sense for you, and it has to make sense for us. And
so,
Now, this shows an aerial view of the JDC, and I really just kind of put this in here so you can see that those blue rooftops are townhomes, and over on the left side are kind of the cluster developments. They have shared driveways. You can kind of see there's 4 cluster, 6 cluster. The plan that we saw before had an 8-unit cluster.
you're talking the ones in the bottom here in the gray?
Yeah, gray, and then as you go up, and look,
So just south of the
Yeah, the
open
bottom
space.
sides is a four
Yeah, that's-
clusters, the ones that
So
kind of
their
single
open
family.
space might be as big as our entire residential project. I'm over exaggerating there. So our scale is gonna be quite a bit different
Right.
because we
well, and
just don't
JDC
have
is a huge
enough
development.
land.
It's far more. It's far bigger than this one.
These are what I would
There's
call
so many
four
phases
cluster
of it that we've already
units.
worked on.
Okay.
where these ones over here are 6 clustered units, and you can kind of see there's that alley there.
Alright.
And then just to the north is a standalone single, the other section is single family
Yeah,
standalones.
These
Correct.
ones are
That'd be your Cs.
pretty cute in that they, rather than coming off of the clustered drive, they just front right onto the road and have driveways there.
I mean, I do like the concept of putting green space closer to the T's because those are the families that use it the most because they don't have
They
their
don't
own
have
yards.
Yeah.
The people in the C's, they're just gonna enjoy their own backyards.
Well, and this, like,
The yards aren't very big.
we've also got to remember, like, green space here isn't gonna be just for these homes, cause like, so
Correct.
believe it or not, we're gonna have a freeway that's gonna cut Hooper in half.
Yeah.
Everything east of there, there's one park, and that road's gonna wipe it out. It's that little tiny place.
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, on 5100.
West Haven has one on 4700, but there's nothing else east in Hooper that resembles green space.
Correct.
One thing that makes our ability to match JDC is the size of the JDC versus the size of this property.
Correct.
And it's really important just to recognize scale is one of the reasons why it's just a little bit much. This size of the park that's shown there. This is just kind of a mix. You can kind of see, these would be the clustered units. You can kind of see there's the shared driveway. And then here's like the back of townhomes. And we don't have anything this tight on the plan. But again, if we looked at, opening up some green space and that kind of thing, we might have to get a little bit tighter, which it's really just kind of, again, we're here for some feedback so that we can kind of go back to the drawing.
But I think we need some more green space in the plan. And whether that means it may be a little more density and some of the other areas, I don't know, but let us go to work and try to find that.
This is just a picture that was on the website. It's not the coolest townhomes I've ever
No, they
clicked
aren't.
a picture of, but you can kind of see with the grass and stuff, this is really just an earth's rendering. It's not real. And that's why I thought this was kind of a valuable picture.
Yeah.
I apologize, it's grainy. It was a much larger picture on the website, but it really just to kind of, what would it feel like walking around this neighborhood? What would it look like driving through? That's more what the intent of these pictures.
So it's actually really, it's actually really cool because they mentioned, so these houses, they share the driveway. Their front door isn't to the drive. Their front door is to here. There's, like you said, there's walkable. There's sidewalks everywhere. I mean, you can get here from over here, all on sidewalks.
It's
little
hard to
cross.
see.
Yeah,
There's a
one everywhere.
sidewalk. going
It's more
right
community friendly
Yeah,
because
there's
they're
a
facing their
driveway.
neighbors and they just pull into their back
Yeah.
doors,
So,
which really does help the community.
yeah.
If they're backloaded, like these ones that are shown, usually what there is there's about 15 feet in length. That may not accommodate the tundras and stuff we talked about, but the idea is to provide a parking stall
You know,
there.
those square boxes on the site plan don't do a very good job. of
Right.
doing
Yeah.
this.
And
This
but if it's, say it's a 20-foot setback, that gives you essentially a parking stall to have in the driveway for some visitor parking, so that not everybody's out on the street. Now, if I have a family party, sure, there's gonna be some cars out on the street.
Oh, that's a lot more huge, so it's good.
And this one's kind of,
It's a better
I
picture.
just thought this was more finished, and it just was, I don't know, quite pretty. But you can see, there's the alley driveway, and then here's the sidewalk, so that I can go out the front door and walk up to the road kind of thing.
Causes interaction.
And I would assume
Right.
Weaver Fires
Like
on
the
the turnaround.
subdivision in Kaysville that's west of the
In
Smiths.
there,
We have to work
Hill
through
Farms.
those
Hill
details.
Farms, like that one's a really well designed,
60-foot hammerhead
community friendly,
turnout,
density.
Not having
Yeah,
fences.
they-
That's,
Yeah.
it's a detail we have to work through.
Yeah,
They,
Once we kind of.
yeah, it's a great community and
Yeah.
it worked
the,
really well.
honestly, the biggest
That's where I was
challenge I see
wondering,
with
they're
those little
hoping
private
that,
drives
Yeah,
Something like
is
that.
the
something
utilities.
similar to that, I would love to see in this
Hill
instance.
Farms.
Would you make those six packs, would you say those are private road going in, or private drives, so the city's not maintaining
Oh,
those?
Yeah,
That's
they-
correct.
yes, there's no way.
Yeah, so one of the things that we run into with JDC is the utilities, so like you just gotta make sure on the plat it's written well that they can have access, and then making sure there's like a full-on manhole in the back so that you can clean it a lot easier,
Yeah,
things like that.
nothing wants anything in
Yeah, we don't
easements,
want
if we
it-
can
we don't
avoid
want it to
easements
clean
whenever
out. We
possible
wanna-
for maintenance situations.
Well,
You
those
have
are
to
some
have
of the
a
things that
manhole
we've,
on a dead end.
and then in
100%.
stormwater, we've had them where they slope back down to the city road or county road, and then everything just kind of flows across the sidewalk. So that's kind of something we've tried to say, well, is there a better way to do it? And what JDC's ended up doing is trying to go slope away, and they have just a storm drain box in the back that they tie into. The other thing JDC's done a really good job at, because I imagine have to, build stuff, bring in fill and things like that, just to get storm drain and stuff to work, is they put yard drain boxes along all these smaller lots. That way, when you build up the house and you go to landscape, there's not just these holes and water just finds it. So you put in all these yard drain boxes in
Especially in-
between these, especially next to these bigger lots and the fields.
They all drain to the
Everything,
field.
everything will drain to them,
Yeah.
so that's something to think about.
In my younger days, I worked as the assistant to the Roy City engineer. So I'm not trying to say that Hooper's like Roy. I'm just saying I
I think you just said it.
no,
Oh, Troy,
Yeah, you're in trouble.
that's not what I said.
You're doing so
If
well,
you let
Troy.
me- if you let me
we're
finish,
gonna have to have another brawl like that in your basement?
just let me finish. All I was trying to say is, every one of those, I've been in a lot of people's backyards up there, and they're asking, why is my swing set in this squishy ground?
Yeah.
And why, when our kids play on the swing set, can they not play on the swing set because it squishes into the ground? And there's a need for that drainage that you're just talking about there. And I don't want to be the guy who gets those calls, and I don't want anybody in the city to get those calls.
Yeah, that is the tough part too.
Yeah, we'll work on that.
That's the
Keep
only thing
giving
I was
us
gonna
more
compare.
input, that, it's really helpful.
I got a few things that we could use some input on as we work with Troy to build this out. So just to give you guys a heads up, this is coming pretty quick, as you probably noticed in the packet. It might have been a little bit of a shocker, but we're trying to get this moving. We've been talking about it for a long time, so we'd like to get it
3 years.
we'd like to get some action moving on it. The process we're looking at, and we'll talk with Nick a little bit when we have time, but we need to get a rezone, a general plan amendment. The DA that was proposed contemplates an ordinance update that would probably be done simultaneously to ensure that our PUD zone accommodates the residential you talked about. Then that would be one phase, I would say. That would give them a rezone, and then we need to go through after that, and there'll be some finer grain, more engineering, but preliminary and final plat approval. But the essence of this is we need to get the general product layout and the look and what we're going to get out of this nailed down as part of our rezone, and then we can work through some of the engineering and things of that nature for our plat approval. Do you guys have any questions about the actual approval process, now to look as we navigate it?
Not so much the approval process, but I do, so when you're setting all this up, are you planning on setting some of this up as a PUD, or is this gonna be HOA? How's all that, all the little lawns and everything gonna get, or take individual owners, how are we, what's it look like?
There'll be common area because it has to be common area. with
Right.
lanes.
For
So
townhomes, yeah.
it'll either be some type of PUD, but an HOA, one of the two, and depending on how we get it done. But there'll be common maintenance, common ownership, and
Okay.
there'll be a fee that they'll be assessed to maintain it.
And
So
then if
there
we,
will be common. You have to in this type of project.
Yeah.
and then at what point, or is it even in our wheelhouse, like, talking about things like deed restrictions, where, hey, that's gotta be owner occupied for X amount of years, so it doesn't turn into rentals? Cause I'm not interested in 130 rental properties.
Agreed.
So JDC Ranch, they did that in their development agreement. There's something written in there that talks about owner occupied for
It's like 10
It's
years.
so many years and things
Yeah.
like that, yeah.
Was there anything on there, you said cottages, but does that include like patio
Patio
homes?
homes.
We had talked about patio homes,
That could be a product. Patio is kind of more of a single level unit.
yeah.
And the common thing that seems to be more popular now is particularly all the good ground's gone. So I can't build a basement in the ground, so now I just put the basement on the second level. But a single family unit
I
or
mean,
a
if you-
single level unit could be common.
Have you looked at the one we have over here, just by the culinary water?
I have.
He's seen it.
Stuart probably has.
And then where Mom's at and Wilkie's are at, right, the old Sodbuster Turf Farm, have you been over there and seen that in Pleasant View, North Ogden?
No, we could drive it.
Just east of White Barn.
Okay, I know the ground.
Yeah.
I haven't seen what's been built there.
I mean, they're fairly nice homes for, I mean, most of them have a bonus room over the garage. And Mom's is 2-bedroom with living and dining and everything else, so. I think something like that would work, a patio home.
We can go back inside.
Okay, we could certainly look at that.
So Malcolm, question on that general plan amendment. We're currently going through the process of like reviewing our general plan anyway. So we'll just basically do an amendment to the current general plan, and then that'll be in direct consideration for the review that they're working on anyway.
Do we have to,
Yeah, this amendment would come before our larger.
That's what I thought,
general
because
plan.
we're 10 months out on the review /
Yeah,
major
they're ahead
amendment.
of our general plan update, so we'll need to,
Okay.
it'd be nice if the changes we make are
In-
comfortable with, even, I mean, there'll be changes and there'll be things in the development agreement that are particular to them, but it'd be nice if the changes to our ordinance are
Okay.
ones that we're comfortable with just maintaining. Usually we change it so we don't have a lot of redundancy, or a lot of change, but
Okay. That's what I figured was happening.
So I understand that though. As we come in for the rezone, you could do the rezone and the general plan amendment together. So they, okay, just want to make sure. I
yeah, we should do
understand
them at the same time.
Correct.
all of the general plan or just the commercial / PUD portion?
Their amendment would be, they would be the PUD portion, and that would really probably be it. I think the commercial is
already
probably
there.
facilitated, it's just not, it's probably contemplated enough, we don't need to amend anything, but we just need some standards that they're helping us with through this agreement.
Okay.
So we really don't have great standards for our C2 zone. We have the zone, we want it, it's in our general plan. This should have been good, doesn't need to amend it. It's really just the PUD zone that hasn't been in place and needs an amendment. And so we could do.
Yeah.
We hope to do that in the development agreement.
I would make a subtle-
Then you can make your ordinance.
I would make a subtle comment, I'm not trying to split hairs. I think, I'm confident the general plan contemplated C1 here. It's just not a reality. It's gonna be, we're looking at C, it's gonna be C2 over where that is. I think we thought we'd have limited residential, or retail sales throughout, but we're gonna have a larger scale development like this. There's never been any interest so far, and no one's come to me with a small mom or pop shop yet. This is what's gonna come near 51 and 55, so.
Well,
That would be the other major, I guess, maybe, is we would be clarifying with the rezone that this is going from a commercial to an officially a C2 zone that
I
allows
think
this.
part of that though is what Stuart talked about is everything's online now, so it's hard to
Yeah.
get a brick and mortar.
I think our update
To
to the
succeed.
general plan will identify areas where those will happen at 55 and 55, some things like that. We'll have some nice areas where we have more local sales, but
Well, and you can still get them on, like, I know a lot of people, they're voicing they want like a small mom and pop restaurant and stuff. Something still has to draw them to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd be open to that. We have in one of our projects a pizza shop, C Brothers Pizza. I think they're the best pizzas in Utah, but they only have 2 locations, mom and pop. But they really make great pizza. People love them, but problem is they aren't Little Caesars and nobody knows their name, and they just don't. And so, if you ever go to Layton, to the Layton Parkway exit, go in and get either their combination or their barbecue chicken, and you'll go back and back again. But those type of small shops, I love them.
Yeah.
But it's hard for them to make money too, so they got
They need to be tied to something.
but they got to be tied to the anchor.
Yeah.
because they aren't tied to a Smith's or to a grocery store, they just go out of business. They just don't have the ability to advertise and stay in business.
Could you guys look at 152 in the DA? The 1.5, 1.521-I-2 section there. So these are design guideline elements. This is where we're at with Troy and the AWA group. He's kind of recommended some design elements. We're going to solidify that list, and he's going to help procure that. Troy, speak in if I'm over commenting here, but as we get some of those put together, these are things you guys could anticipate seeing to help you make your rezone. I think the fine distinction here where we want to be reasonable is we're going to try and put any reasonable items that we can at the plat approval level. We don't want them to incur an unreasonable amount of costs, but we need to be able to see and feel how this development looks enough that you guys can comfortably. So if there's any other items besides what's listed there, I have a couple in mind, but they might come at the plat base, but we'll work with Troy. So anyway, go ahead, Planning Commission and Troy, if what things will come and what you really feel like you need to see to comfortably recommend this one way or the other.
So we have, this is a copy of the JDC Ranch design guidelines, and there are more products listed in here than we can accommodate. But again, with that direction, we can go back and trim down the list and go to the maybe 3 or 4 products that we have, and if there's an interest in patio homes, then that can be accommodated as well. But really, it's very, without the zoning, without establishing what is the minimum lot size, that kind of information, it's very difficult to get a home builder involved, because hey, do you want to buy this land? What can I build there? I don't know. So it just doesn't work. So the first step is really just trying to establish what does it have to look like when it's built, which is the purpose of design guidelines, and then what's the tolerance for the zoning. And essentially that's density and minimum lot size. And then the type of product, even if that's something that's of interest. And then if there's other restrictions that need to come, that's best put in the development agreement.
I think just to kind of stress that, as you guys are probably really aware, we don't have great design guidelines. You probably looked through and noticed compared to maybe Weber County, we don't have them. They're not in place. So things you want to see, we're going to try and depict them through, elevations, site plans. You get real comfortable with it. So if there's anything specific you're concerned about, we'll add it. But just
I think lighting's probably a big one, because we still have a little bit of dark sky out here, and I think lighting needs to be very focused on.
So the direction we've received so far, 25-foot mounting heights for parking lot poles.
A lot of times they're higher than that.
40 is the.
yeah, they
Standard.
proposed 30. They
So
proposed 30. Our
requires
CT
more
zone allowed
posts.
25, so that's what we are working on. But
More posts, more lights, but that's the cost of it. But it actually then doesn't spread.
we will, a lighting plan is.
Yeah, the same type thing. If there's some, like, hey, we're good with your site plan, kind of a thing, and obviously we gotta get through the process, but we can get a photometric plan for that site plan, so that you can see the number of light poles, what's the intensity of the lighting. Some jurisdictions look for the number of lumens per acre, if you wanna go foot candles per acre, however you wanna, whatever gives you kind of a feel. And maybe I do happen to have a light meter, and if I need to go to some shopping center and say, here's what the lighting is, or because you're familiar with the West Point Smith store, I could just share that photometric plan with you. Now, it's probably a little dimmer, the lighting there, because over time the fixtures get dirt in and that kind of thing. So it's not like when the lights are brand new, and that's what they're actually set up for on the plans, but I could share that with you.
What's across the main road from that West Point Smiths? Is that commercial or residential?
Residential.
Because that's
It's a
my
row,
concern, is the
residential.
folks on the other side of 5500 and the folks on 47 that.
Yeah, there's a lot of sophisticated lighting right
Yeah.
now.
Oh, yeah.
And we can bring in those that don't leak, and that are actually very directional.
With the LED lighting that we have now, I'm just doing a very similar shopping center in Draper, and we have similar. The city has extremely. You'd be glad. They have extremely sophisticated lighting standards and a lot of different things. They do not allow spill over the property line at So I can tell you with confidence, the 25-foot light poles, I can get as close as 0.3-foot candles spilling over the property.
Yeah.
What we ended up doing on some of those perimeter lights is we had to reduce the height even further to 22.5 feet to get that to be 0. Against the residential, there are post and panel concrete walls, and we actually had to model the wall to show that as the light comes down, it's the wall that actually walks. To be able to come up with a model that shows that there's not. You can see the light when you look up, but the light coming down is not coming into the
And then things around like noise standards, that'd be more ordinance, not design standard. Dumpsters at midnight.
And I agree, like lighting is one thing that they're gonna get the biggest feedback from residents about. I grew up in Layton and we lived across the street from where they built the Camper World that's right there off the freeway. And the biggest complaint that whole neighborhood had was the lights that place produced.
There's no place, I wonder how I can see that all over the town, how they
Yeah.
light that up.
I don't know how, we live literally
That
right
is
next to it.
that is not a commercial, that, they
That's a lot.
They snuck that in.
They lit it up like the top.
You guys can
We
jump
won't do
to- You guys can jump
I like
to
it.
There's no
2,
need.
3 as well. 2, 3, something I think you could give, can put on that would be helpful and development team can talk about. Allowed uses versus prohibited uses. If you're gonna be allowed uses, I wanna make sure you guys look through the table for allowed uses in a PUD, allowed uses in a C2, and make sure there's no unintended uses. We would need to clear those up, and then also, are there any uses you wanna call out as that you don't want? We threw out some examples, it's just examples, they don't need to be prohibited. I actually had one thought on I think, petroleum cells, there might actually be an application beyond what we might need. I don't know if that would prohibit propane tanks and things like that, but you might want a place where people can swap tanks and do normal things like that.
The only thing they currently do is they have a Blue Rhino propane tank, so you can change out a little 5-gallon for the barbecue grill. They
But they don't fill 'em.
do the larger propane sales.
But it's just exchange.
Yeah, and it's just, they just have a cage. You bring the empty, they stick it in the cage, they give you a full one, and the guy comes and picks up the empty.
Gotcha. If you were to bring in a small, anyway, but yeah, just a thought. And then
So
yeah,
car
go ahead.
washes were loaded in there, I don't know why car washes would be restricted, or they go in there and take those.
They're in there currently with this version.
I wonder whether that's a big deal or not.
And so the current commercial uses that you have in your very current code, they provide all the uses we're looking for. What Malcolm's really alluding to is there's some things in there you probably don't want. And there's some things actually in there that a grocer won't want. They won't want sit-down alcohol sales in their shopping center. Like point of consumption versus point of distribution. You can take your 12-pack or whatever home with you, but they don't want somebody sitting in the parking lot or out in an outdoor seating area drinking alcohol. And so that's just the kind of thing that you'll
Well,
actually
also
see.
restrict
the
us.
grocery to restrict.
Having done, they'll restrict us from other type of uses that
Other pharmacies.
they won't let us put a
restrict that.
pharmacy in,
Yeah.
they won't let it on
Cause they
gas.
direct compete.
Yeah, they won't let us put other gas
Some
stations.
some other examples.
And they, there's some others, those type of things. We'll get another layer of restrictions from them, so you know that.
Yeah.
This calls out some, and that was just, we just pulled that, those aren't anything we're set on, they were just examples to get your mind generating on things, and we'd have to advise with Nick on anything we could or couldn't prohibit, but some other examples like auditoriums, charter schools, hospitals, reception centers. In a PUD zone, you probably could have an assisted living. I don't know if you want to permit us assisted living in a residential zone right next to this. Thoughts? So.
Would assisted living be good or bad? I have no idea. We do get a question, we have people.
I mean, you go down the,
Well, it would be in that PUD zone, so from a density standpoint, it would be interesting. Good or bad, I don't know. But if you had a resident, you got 5 units to the acre, and then if we placed if somehow it got worked in that there was I don't know, good. I guess it would, thoughts. So.
It'd be interesting.
they got one on the Layton Parkway. If you come off the West Davis and head to the hospital,
Yeah.
they got a memory care right in with
With the
cluster
hospital.
houses.
So
Yeah, because it's on the other side of the street of the hospital.
We do have doctors and things like that in our commercial centers, doctor offices, dentists. I assume that's not prohibited. But I'm aware of a assisted living center that's out looking right now, but is that something, I don't know, even want up here, but give me some feedback.
Is that a
It'd
possible
depend on
flex
size.
space use?
Right.
I think it could be possible flex space use, yeah, good as your thought, but it'd be hard.
They're talking about, they're a 5-acre size tech unit, that's what they are.
How many beds does that?
I have no idea.
I don't know what that
I don't
converts
do
to.
assisted living.
Many.
What's that one right there? They just put west of South Fork Hardware.
In
Right
West
there by
End.
Kansas.
So,
Yeah.
so,
That's tiny.
so they did the one,
Small.
I know when they did, it's down that Layton Parkway, but you go all the way out to Angel Street, and it's on the southeast corner across the street from the dentist office.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Is that the one you're talking, they did
It's
that?
the memory care /
Yeah, that's
assisted
it.
living.
Yeah.
And there's probably half a dozen buildings in there, they're all single story, they're all, but,
I guess that would depend on you, because then that would take away, if they're gonna need 3 to
Yeah.
5 acres, then there goes some of your housing.
yeah. And I don't know, there's room for both here, so that's why I'm not sure I'd like them. I'm more curious to whether even to entertain them. If there's adversity in this group, I don't even want to talk to them. If it's kind of sixes, maybe I would, okay.
In my opinion, I think it's 6s. I mean, our population, you can tell, we got that patio home place is built out. And so now the population's getting to the point where we gotta go to Lotus, or we gotta go to the place there by Kent's or Beehive House, or Peachtree,
Peachtree.
there in West Haven, so.
Convenience is
Valuable.
a big deal.
I just wanted to plant the seed though,
We
so
take-
this is your chance to have discussions on that, but not very now, but before we recommend you don't get it approved, you have thoughts, if you have any considerations, but none of those are necessarily huge problematic things. You got up the discussion. These are a couple
So
buzz items.
before we leave that, car washes, I'd like to know, so that's probably a big deal.
Yeah, please go
We got
ahead.
a lot of demand for car washes. I don't know right now.
It's crazy how popular that's come.
Pardon me?
It's crazy how popular that's come. Yeah,
As long as they can fit a dually truck.
Put a good one in that'll fit everything.
Out here in the country.
Yes.
Okay. Not prohibited at least, so it'd be permitted or.
I don't see a problem with the car wash in an area like this, it seems to fit well, but
Yeah. Just not in Roy. There, you got 75,000 of them.
Okay,
I think. the
Vehicle
reason-
repair. I assume that means like an actual mechanic shop, not like an auto zone.
Yeah, it seemed like it had verbiage in there for like limited, so yeah, I would imagine you could, it's just something like auto parts sales, maybe like
Yeah.
a lube shop, but it would probably prohibit it more.
Because later in the development agreement, it does mention automotive service,
Yeah, I think
so they
service-
kind of conflict
yeah,
each other. And I
service.
assumed one was leaning towards AutoZone O'Reilly's.
so we put a Valvoline in Springville
Yeah.
that went really well. It actually sits next to the fuel center. And
Oh, so I can
you
move
don't
some.
even know, they're no different than a drive-up window.
Yeah.
The question would probably be more, would you want to restrict mechanic shops to more our limited
We
office
would
or our
probably
industrial
have that
spaces?
restriction with Smith's. We're not gonna, now, I don't know I think they probably restrict even a tire store, don't they?
Like a Brothers.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe we've let
We'd
them
have to
in.
look at that. Or you could ask for an exception on something. Because they don't sell tires, but it's really, they just don't want uses that are gonna occupy their parking.
They get, even in their inline shops, they don't like dentist's office because they sit there in the parking stall too long.
Yeah.
Beyond use is another buzzword that got kicked around a lot and something we can work with Nick on, but I don't want it to be a hard point when we get to there is our phasing plan. There was discussions obviously early on of ratios of completion. I'm not overly familiar with it, so I'm not gonna act like I am, but it might be something we wanna have discussions with this team here about what's reasonable and what could be accommodated.
As far as what gets filled out first, is that what you're referencing or how fast it happens?
Like when you phase a plan together of this, do you start with commercial? Do you move from outside in, inside out?
It'll be done, and there's a big issue here. It's the sewer lift station, and you can't fund the sewer lift station with even the density, even increased density of residential. There's no way economically to pay for that lift station with 20 acres of ground.
Yeah.
Okay, even 40 acres of ground. So you got to have the commercial to fund the lift station. So you either got to have the commercial being built, or you can't do your residential. But to put restrictions on how you time the project, just because you can't build the lift station without the commercial, you're going to get the commercial with the residential. But the government, to restrict the capacity of the private sector to be able to make it work, that becomes a little problematic, because you understand how it functions. You
Right.
got to, but the pure fact that you can't sewer those homes without the lift station, logically,
Forces the hand.
you can't have the lift station without the commercial.
Correct.
You're gonna have them together.
So how do you
Does that make
anticipate,
sense?
how would you anticipate this
Totally.
be built out? What would come first? What would, in actual construction?
Grocer anchor would drive the commercial. There isn't a tenant that would come.
So you anticipate likely with the
Say that again,
grocery
say that
would come
again,
very
Troy,
first.
because I think the public doesn't normally understand that.
Yeah.
Oh, the grocer anchor is what creates the trips
The
that
demand.
benefit the other pads and tenants.
And you
They
will
can't
not,
stand
you
alone.
will not get anyone here, I think,
Without the
saying,
anchor.
I know everybody thinks it'll come, but it won't,
Yeah.
without the anchor.
That's Willis Smith yours? Did you do that development?
No, that was Perry, I should have though.
Because I watched that one, and they built the Smiths first, and now they're almost completely built out in
It
front
blew
of it
up,
now.
that's the Smiths is
drew
doing $1.5 million
so
a
much.
week there.
I
Yeah.
know the engineer that's
It's a nice
designed that
store.
one, too.
They did all that.
You know that guy?
But
Speak
Perry,
to them.
Perry wouldn't let us in.
What about the residential? When does that?
That would, again, zoning drives the builder, and then the builder would set the,
So we're gonna try to do it all together. Just, that's what we're gonna try to do. But you talk to a builder, they're not gonna build it all at once.
Right.
They're gonna, like anything else, the market is the market. And they'll come in and build as much of as they can, and the market will sustain
Well,
it.
I don't know what's worse from the residents around. Is it better to draw out the whole building process? You think of all the construction vehicles and people and everything servicing that, or is it better to just get it all done at once?
I don't know, we live in Utah,
It's
we have
never
a
seen-
season for
the orange
construction.
cone, you're not wrong.
So would it be
Yeah, go
would it
ahead.
be unreasonable to have some type of requirement in the DA for a level of completion with the
Pad,
not the pads but the grocer anchor
the anchor.
prior to any?
I, to put it in the agreement, I think, which
makes it harder.
it just then you're trying to explain to somebody that you can't, it's gonna happen all at once. And you're not gonna get, I mean, we got people on 4700, one of the family members that's paid the sewer fees, he tells me. And it's not been able to build his home because it doesn't have a lift station.
Yep.
And so even if you're not gonna get it, you gotta have that lift station built. And the only way you're gonna build that is with the commercial. And then to try to tie them together, you gotta have so much of this or so much of that. You gotta let the market work that and find a way to get it built. And you can restrict it, I guess, but the restriction's gonna probably represent what's gonna happen anyway.
I think that's.
But I think not to have confidence that it's gonna have to happen that way, I think is not sensible.
Right.
But, I
Yeah, for
don't,
the whole thing to work, the anchor's gonna have to come,
yes.
because that's what funds it, and also that's what,
It
what
doesn't seem
gets the
totally
ball.
unreasonable to have some contemplated language of the anchor to an extent that you're comfortable with the
think we'll have some certainty.
Yeah, but do we hold the sewer on the residential till the anchor is built? Or can we put the sewer in, or do we site plan, or we put curb and gutter in, or we sell in lots, and the anchor isn't totally built? But no one's gonna sell a lot if they don't have the sewer lift station there.
It's
And
not
nobody's
possible.
gonna have the sewer lift station if the anchor's not underway.
Yeah.
But we gotta go
I'm
back
not
and
sure
look at
totally
this
built,
leak.
it'd have to
We
be-
gotta have an attorney review it to see if we're stepping over the line or violating the ordinance. And it just seems good, I suppose, politically, but it seems cumbersome to function. Does that make sense?
They're most likely, and I realize the greatest confidence comes from seeing it in writing, that anchor drives the whole show.
Yeah.
And to put a stipulation on the anchor, they would probably ask for it to be a little bit longer, just so that there's the rooftops, whatever, to support that.
I mean,
The anchor's interested in the residential being behind it because they're going to shop there.
that's what drove where your new Home Depot's going, them other pads.
And now
Once the
they're-
Home Depot went in, your Home Depot, then them pads started popping up.
Yeah, the paths, some of them are already sold, and now they're housing all behind it.
But it was the Home Depot that drove it.
Yeah, and so, and it may be, I mean, if Smith's is delayed 6 months, but the CRA can be put in place, and it's funding the sewer lift station, do we have to wait 6 months before we put in the line? But nobody's gonna sign on the bottom line for a CRA if Smith's isn't signed on the line to build.
Yeah.
But if they're delayed 6 months, do we now delay the entire residential project 6 months? And what does that do economically to the builder? It just feels, it's all gonna have to happen to make it work, but I don't, to try to put it in an attorney's hands rather than a builder's hands, I get a little nervous about, okay.
Amenities, open space, the PUD's only 40% open space. We'll have to look at what you got and work through that and see if, and like I said, we can amend certain things. I think our current PUD zone is 4 units max attached. They're proposing 6. That could be an amendment to the zone, something like that. But what do you guys do out on amenities, pocket parks, trails? We want a little bit of connectivity too. I don't think we want anything unusual. I know there's some thoughts, maybe a pavilion, things like that. It'd be nice for people to have lunch. But go ahead.
That's what I would like to see, but if we're gonna put green space on, when we're talking about smaller units and more dense, you can't kick a ball with your kid, right? We need to focus on that. I want a park, right? I want a Bowery with
Yeah,
like
the
hours.
first home that I owned was in Stone Creek subdivision in West Haven. Our lot was .10.
Yeah.
There's value in those lots, like it served my family well, but we played at the park at the end of the subdivision every day. Because my kids could not enjoy our 25 by 25 backyard very well as we started to grow a family. So I lived that life and I agree, like, it's
Yep.
So when you've got up here on walking trail too, one of the things, like my wife and boy like to ride their bikes all over town, and they constantly end up over on Green Farm because they've got an amazing just walking. It's a sidewalk, but the way it goes through and the way they've done kind of the amenities before it leads into the houses, you've got shrubs and trees, and it's kind of a natural thing, and you see people outside all the time over there.
creates community.
Very helpful.
Yeah, go to that JDC ranch in the evening, like about this time.
Agreed. JDC is, if you haven't
Chock
been there, you
full
should
of
check it
people.
out.
Every single trail.
We'll go look at it too.
We're
Go on, Malcolm.
we
We
don't
have
have
5
a ton
minutes.
of time, so we'll sit here, but this really isn't overly pertinent, but I do wanna make sure we address it. A large section of the DA that'll come is related to, they're calling it infrastructure financing.
Yep.
It contemplates working together to find financing mechanisms. That'll be a lot in the, up to the city council, how that's done, but, just to put it out there, I mean, obviously, tax increment finance is something we've heard a lot about. This looks like we're talking about a CRA specifically. We've also done some work on our end for a grant, just wanna make sure everyone's aware of that, for some grant money for sewer infrastructure that we could likely apply, and then, we've done pioneering agreements in the past, and there's other
So
development there, so.
that's one of the things I want to ask Nick about tonight too. Is like there were some big hangups previously as this came through planning commission, like hangups over financing, and I don't know what our role in that really is because we're not the legislative part of the city
I think
government.
as it relates to necessary infrastructure and whether there could be some discussion, but ultimately, I don't think it'll be overly.
No, I think our role is to say we have to have the infrastructure, and then the
They gotta
city
figure it out.
council gets to figure that out.
Figure it out how they're gonna do it.
Yeah, we're
on that.
recommending. They figure it out.
And I would say, just from experience, if you're going to, you need it. And there's no other project that I've seen that fits that type of thing because you've got an infrastructure that is bigger than any one project. And that's where that type of.
And that's how it should be used. That's how.
But if you make it big enough, there are other things inside the city that actually probably need to be dealt with that probably could be part of that. And that's where you could make recommendations as to the size.
I would like to see, there's definitely land around there to the west and to the east and to the south that is undeveloped, to explore pioneering agreements with those developers that have already submitted plans, to have them participate in the sewer infrastructure as well. That and keep, I know you said it, no number of homes would allow you to do the infrastructure, but we also, like, there's land around there that's gonna be developed once this sewer lift station, everybody's waiting for this.
It'll trigger a
It'll
bunch.
trigger a bunch of, and I would like to see that explored with those location plans that have plans submitted to the city already to
Yeah,
make.
because if they're just sitting back waiting for somebody else
And
to fund that,
and that's where you want to put together an impact fee that pays back.
It covers and helps recoup.
Kind of like a pioneering agreement, but it pays to the city.
And just to maybe give a little bit of light and not to get into things that are not super relevant, but I think we're at about a $2.5 million lift station to get that done, and then we have a force main of about $1 million is what. I don't want to we don't know for sure on numbers, but it is a significant infrastructure, and that's why the financing is being discussed.
so what,
To facilitate the land use that you guys are looking at.
Where does that lift station, what's the concept of where it's gonna pump to? To the 4700 West Haven line that we're renting? Or to the 50, it'll pump to 51 and go down our line?
Yeah, you'll know better than me, but this might. I have to pull it up. Looks like this is the lift station area, the east area.
Yep.
Goes down, and I'm not totally sure.
I don't even know this, I just know that where it is in our project.
It's where your mouse is currently,
Yeah.
down low, yeah.
It's right there, that's our project.
you are here.
Yeah.
But it services all that yellow?
In theory, that's what our engineer's telling us, yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's logically gonna flow to 5100 eventually, cause that's where our larger pipe is, and it's gonna flow up to Central Weaver from there.
Where's the main truck?
On 5100.
A little bit.
Straight.
getting off
Yeah,
the-
5100.
we can
Runs
go
straight
through
north
that
on
as we go.
5100 all the way to,
So,
Gravity.
Mountain, what are you,
it's
what are you
gravity
looking,
until
what do
it
we
hits
need
Central Weaver sewer
do
line,
tonight?
50,
What are you looking for?
2550.
I think if you
2550.
guys can read through allowed
Then
uses,
the gravity
provide
there,
any
goes that-
input on
that
allowed
tower,
uses
that
that
water
you
tower.
want. You can provide any input on any of the other items that we talked about specifically. We don't have anything specific. We're gonna get these items out as quick as we can with them and get them back to you so you can review them. But
yeah, we'd like your direction, so as we come back next month, where we got direction
You
from
don't
you.
want to do this for 3
Real
more
quick,
years.
Bob. So the future land use map, is this,
In fact, we won't do it.
are you gonna have to change your future land use map as part of the amendment? Okay.
yeah, right.
So that'll be part of your general plan amendment.
So Malcolm, will the development agreement contain the zoning and the general plan amendment? Will there be elements in there, or will they just be ordinances that will be adopted in addition to?
Sorry, say that one more time.
The general plan amendment and then the rezone, will those be elements of the development agreement, or will they be ordinances occurring separate and apart from?
Time's up, and Nick will be here, so. I
He's
think
right
he's
there.
coming to our meeting and we have time to talk with him, so.
You bet there.
I kind of anticipate those generally would be maybe referenced in the development agreement, but they would take place as separate action items.
which that's what I assumed as well.
That's why he's here.
That's why we don't answer these questions.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time. I appreciate,
Yeah, we're looking for him. Thank you.
appreciate the information.
Mayor.
Feeling strong, Jamie? Feeling strong?
Let's see. Malcolm, you want to tell Stuart and Nora to talk about it later too?
Oh, hey,
Go grab him.
Troy, good 4th of July.
I'd like to welcome you out to our July 9th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting. I'm Commissioner McCormick. I'll be conducting the meeting. To begin our meeting, I'll lead the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll have a reverence, a prayer given by Commissioner Wilson. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
Recording in
America
progress.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father in heaven, I'm grateful for this day, grateful we can meet together tonight as community members here at Hooper. Pray that we can have a good meeting. Pray that we'll be able to have a good sense of community and peace here tonight. We're grateful for the community that we live in, grateful for the country that we live in and the freedoms that we enjoy. We pray that those who protect our freedoms will be blessed, as well as their families. Pray for our first responders and those who serve in our communities. Grateful for all that we have. We say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Those who protect our freedoms will be. He's spoken.
He sounds a lot like you. I know. He's a handsome guy.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. First item of consent is the approval of last meeting's minutes dated July 11th. Did anybody see any corrections or anything that needed to be amended in those minutes?
I didn't see anything, so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from June 11th, 2026.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Commissioner White to approve the minutes and a second from Commissioner Wilson. All in favor? Aye. Minutes are approved. Now on to our action items that we have tonight. The first is a conditional conditional use permit for Jed Dubak for an oversized structure located at 4704 South, 5950 West. The request is for 3,000 square feet and a 25.6 feet height. I'll turn some time over to staff for review of the site plans.
This has been reviewed by staff. Just pulled a couple things from the application there. 3,000 square foot structure and just over 25 feet high. It's going to be used for storage, no plumbing, electrical. You see a simple elevation drawing there along with the site plan. It meets all of the setbacks and everything's good to go. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you. Is a representative from Jed Dubak here to come forward and kind of just explain your project, what you want to use your building for, and do that?
Oh, just,
Come to the mic and then just state your name.
sorry, can't do well. Just basically storage, cars and tools and stuff and whatever. And just right now, just storage building.
Thank you. Right now,
I walked in just the right time, you got it all taken care of.
now entertain a motion to enter a public hearing.
I'll make a motion that we enter a public hearing for the conditional use permit for Jed Dubak.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Severing and a second from Commissioner Bates. All in favor? Aye. All right, if there is anybody here that would like to come forward and state any questions or concerns or about the oversized structure, they may come forward, state their name, that they're a resident of Hooper City. You have 3 minutes. Watch Jamie, she'll be holding up cards. So at this time, any residents may step forward and express your feelings. Seeing no public comment, I will entertain a motion to close public comment and return to the regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Bates, a second from Commissioner Woodison. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Does the Planning Commission have any discussion or questions for staff on this project?
Malcolm, maybe just explain why this is here, what is the conditional use, what's above and beyond what our code says, just maybe people are aware.
The most recent update we had to an accessory structure, the half acre zone can be 2,500 square feet, so it's 500 square feet larger than what is principally permitted, and then 25 foot is the maximum height. So this is half foot taller. So this is a conditional use for an oversized structure. There's nuances there that we discuss in greater detail as a broader policy as we move along, but that's specifically why this one's here tonight.
But even on the half acre, it meets all the setbacks and everything else, right?
Yeah, he meets all of his accessory structure setbacks.
We have nothing as far as impervious surface or anything like that that we're approaching.
I haven't done an impervious surface check, but Nate Coleman, our building inspector, does them prior to the building permits, but it doesn't appear. I've seen a lot more. There's 65%, 65% impervious surface, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other discussion, or I'll entertain a motion on the request.
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit for Jed Dubak at 4704 South, 5950 West.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Woodison, a second from Commissioner White to approve the oversized structure. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Conditional use passed. On to our next action item is another conditional use permit for Franklin Huff for an oversized structure located at 4942 West, 4825 South. The request is for a 1,400 square foot structure with a height of 23 feet. I'll turn some time over to staff to give us the presentation on the site plan.
Site plan, elevation, rendering. It's an ROS zone, so this one had some strict terms. We've actually never, as the planning commission, revisited our ROS zone. It's actually a zone that's not in place anymore, but as it lies and applies, they have a 1,200 square foot max. They're going 1,400 square feet
Thank you. Is there a representative from Franklin Huff that would like to come forward and kind of explain your building and what would you like to use it for?
Yeah, Franklin Huff, just a pole barn, just for storage, for side-by-sides, toys, dirt bikes, just extra room, that's all.
Is there room in there for like an ADU or anything like that, like a living space or inside the?
No, it's all storage.
What's the distance from the pole barn to the back of the house?
10 foot.
10? Is that,
That's their minimum
that's
requirement,
the minimum?
10 foot between buildings, yep.
Says you're gonna be plumbing, is it just have water out there, it's washing?
Just like sink, so my kids ride their bikes, just washing machine, just simple things like that out there, keep it out of the house. We're very outdoor advocates, so wife gets tired of it being in the house.
Thank you.
Yep.
This time I'll entertain a motion to enter. We need to enter a public hearing
Hold on, Wayne.
and then.
Yeah, my name's Wayne Goldwell, I live
Hey,
right.
2 minutes, Wayne.
Just a second, we have to enter a public hearing first and then we'll give you
Oh.
time to come. I'll entertain a motion to enter a public hearing for the conditional use permit for Franklin Health.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Bates and a second from Commissioner Woodison. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Any of those that would like to come forward and make public comment, come forward, state your name now, and you'll have 3 minutes. Watch Jamie for your time, and your time is now yours.
He just kind of hard hit it.
My name is Wayne Goldwell, I live right behind Frankie, and I say let him do it. My shed is 30 by 50. It's gonna be right behind his. And it's about almost 30 feet tall, so it won't obstruct anything that I've got going.
Thank you. Any others want to come forward for public comment? Seeing no more, I'll entertain a motion to return to the regular meeting.
Make that motion. Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Wade, second from Commissioner Severing. All in favor?
Aye.
Bring back to commission for discussion and motion on the conditional use permit. My thought there was, even though it's 5 feet higher than what we allow, buildings around there, like his neighbor said, are higher or equal to that size, so I don't see why it would be obstructing anything, so I see nothing holding us back for approving this permit.
I'll make the motion to approve this conditional use permit for Franklin Huff for the oversized structure located at 4942 West, 4825 South.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Waite to approve this structure and a second from Commissioner Woodison. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Conditional use permit approved. Okay, now we are on to our discussion items. The first item is the group home ordinance creation and amendment to Hooper City Code 10-1A-1. In the packet there was material that was kind of set forth to kind of make these amendments and the changes that we had discussed at last meeting, as well as at this time we could get any comments from Nick on the attorney, Nick's comments on that ordinance creation as well, or any discussion that the planning commission would like to have on that ordinance.
So last time we were here, we kind of discussed this, and I've done a little research on group homes and such. I think the reason we're making these changes, and I'll let Malcolm jump in because he did kind of jump into this midstream, is currently our code defines family in 3 ways. It's 2 people that are living, a person living alone, or 2 or more persons related by marriage. It's a group of 10 people that are not related by marriage, or it's 8 or fewer disabled or handicapped people that are living together. And that creates some legal liability for the city. We should really just have a family be a I guess what we typically call the traditional nuclear family, people that are related by blood or marriage, or a set number for all people without calling out whether they are, in any kind of ADA restricted group. And so this would clean that up, and it would create a lot more clarity in the code. There's also some definitions for what is an elderly person and group homes for people that are elderly and have disability. And then it establishes some areas where they can go and some guidance there.
We really gotta put an age on elderly person. I kinda relate to that. 60 or above.
As I said, I jumped into this in the middle, so I didn't write this.
I actually have one question when we're on, under the family section, B, up to 4 unrelated persons with or without children. So does that mean 4 people and they can each have 4 kids, so there could be 16 people living in that house?
Where are you at?
Family, B, right above elderly person.
No, I read that as 4 unrelated people in the house.
Total. Okay.
Yep.
And that specifically ties into our definition of a group home, conditional and allowed uses.
So this would allow anything, if you had a group home, if somebody wanted to develop a group home, they wanted to have it house 3 people, they wouldn't need to come get a conditional use. Between 4 and 8, no, I'm sorry, more than 4 and less than 8, they would have to come before this body and get conditional use. And then more than 8 is just not allowed, if I understand that correctly. No, I don't know.
Correct. Yeah, Nick did a good job of explaining it. I agree. It's just adding clarity and helping us comply with what is required for a group home. It's just an ordinance we hadn't looked at in a while. We had an application, it didn't quite fit. We realized we were higher than what was required. It helped us implement some reasonable accommodations to facilitate these. There's a process. I wouldn't go so far as to call it an application, but it'll have a review to ensure that we're facilitating these and that they're meeting the requirements. And then, as was called out, 4 and under will be permitted in residential zones. Above 4 will be a CUP. And then that's the final point I would note, and I don't want to get the discussion off topic, but 8 and above does then become, at times, commercial use. It becomes other types of uses within residential zone that we have ordinances or definitions that facilitate those types of uses. However, those might be uses we want to look at long term, as we've sometimes had difficulties filling, certain ones of those uses within those definitions. Those might be ones you want to look at as we go on. And some of them, the numbers feel a little bit interesting. We if we're going to have be a number that sometimes we hit 6 in certain ones and things of that nature, there might be things we want to clean up. But as it relates to group homes, we have a good ordinance that cleans up group homes, and then the idea here would be that we could confidently be able to public hear it for a recommendation at the next meeting so that we can get it to city council for just a simple update to the code. But anyway, that's everything.
Nick, during your review, those numbers that Malcolm was mentioning, they're not, would it just be more clean to make them congruent across the code instead of having 06 here?
Maybe I can give an example just to help with the discussion. Daycare home group, an establishment or portion thereof are going where 6, but no more than 12. Another one here, foster home group, which seems like a similar definition. We have in a foster home group, and that we call it provides foster care for 7 to 13 children. So,
yeah, those are all things that we're going to work on, and I think the direction that Malcolm and I and Darren, my partner at the law firm, would like to do is just make those universal, so that it's just easier for staff, it's easier for residents and applicants that they know we're talking about between 4 and 8, and then if there's valid reasons to maybe vary from that, as we do further research on this, then we would certainly do that. But to have 8 in a group home and 6 in a daycare and 13 in a foster care is pretty confusing for everybody, and I think it also exposes the city to, I don't wanna say abuses, but people come in and they say, this isn't a daycare, this is a foster home, and we want 13 kids, and it forces staff to make, and the planning commission to make some hard judgment calls, and if everything's the same, that is reasonably the same, obviously, then it allows things to get put in the right categories and not that kind of monkey wrenching to get it to work into a different category.
Thank you. Any other comment on that code or those changes? I think what you have put forward looks pretty good. We can look at something final and get it approved or sent over to the city council next meeting. On to our next discussion item is further discussion on the development agreement and density bonus for the project that we discussed in our work meeting today at 4700 West and 5500 South. One thing that I didn't think was, we didn't really get to discuss in our work meeting, and it's not really our role to decide on, as Commissioner Bates pointed out in the work meeting, but I do think it's important that we give City Council all the necessary tools and not hinder them in any way to make a decision that puts the best possible path forward for the city, and that includes exploring CRA agreements, but also the pioneering agreements and looking at ways to reduce that risk for the city and get the most benefit out of that development. So I think some of the things we discussed as far as the open space and the park, I think need to be addressed in that development plan, but the density and things like that, to make it less burdensome on the city from a lift station development standpoint, we have to grant some of that greater density to kind of help improve. Some of the reading through the development agreement as far as like the width of the road and access and the city doing those improvements, I think that's more, to me that feels more like the developer developing the land and being responsible for those. But as far as like the lift station, I can see the city helping out in some sort of way in that development, just because there are residents that have been waiting for a long time to develop that property that don't have the chance because that lift station is not there. So I want to give them the opportunity to explore creative ways that could happen. That's just kind of what we didn't really get to that point, but I do think needs to be addressed in that developer agreement and how it looks when it comes back to us.
Well, that's to kind of expound on that, like, to your point, we don't want to handcuff the city council with that, but again, I don't feel like that's our role to really even get into the discussions around financing and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we definitely want to deal with the zoning, things that we would like to see in there, but I think we get hung up in that, and we're not elected, so we don't hold the purse strings, and I think that's something that should fall on the mayor and the city council to determine like financing options and things like that. So thanks for helping me clear that up. One of the things that, Malcolm, can you put that map back up there that they have? That's not in our packet. Can you email that to us? That's a good map.
Yeah, they provided it about an hour before just for their presentation purposes, so it wasn't included in the packet, but we facilitated that. Let me find it.
So if we want to, while you're finding that, if we want to start talking about things that we'd like to see in a developer agreement, the park is one that I keep hearing a lot about, and from people, and where the green space goes, where because currently the discussion in the work meeting, they were kind of looking down around the commercial. I think it needs to be more centralized in the development, so it's more useful for the people in the houses.
In the residential.
Yeah, and I think we need to define what a park is, right? A park isn't just lawn with one jungle gym. Like I would like to see a picnic table with a cover that's powered, right? Something that people want to use and go to. So that's what I would like to see on green space, is something usable, more central in the actual, wherever the residential ends up lining, other than So Nick, the part that they were talking about, if you see the commercial zone down there at the bottom,
Yeah, absolutely.
that's what they were kind of floating, maybe putting something there. That's nowhere close to any of the housing.
And you'd like to put it more, I guess,
Central.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yep,
Um,
and have some kind of Bowery, and playground,
yeah,
preferably.
Yeah, I think trails also, I talked about, and even going through those, we call six packs or whatever, just make the whole community walkable, I think would be huge.
And even if, I mean, we talked a little bit about the outskirts on the edges of walk path.
yeah.
Yeah, might be tough on the outside of those, what did we say, they were 30-acre lots?
Yeah.
Might be tough on those, but for sure in that the whole townhome area and those cottages and stuff. The other thing too is that, I mean, I'm assuming the lift station we built to size is kind of mentioned this whole area coming together. I don't know if we need to define that in there somehow in the development agreement that it's not sized just for this, right? It's sized for the whole area that will go into there.
Are we okay with the six-pack? I think our ordinance says 4 now.
Yeah, you can have up to 4 units attached, so
They want to go 6, right?
they're proposing 6
On the
example, so
on the
that would be a modification to our code that we need to call in the DA and then either modify our code or work with Nick, but that'd be differing.
I would say, and I know this gets into the purse strings, but if we're gonna grant the higher density and the six packs and things like that, then there has to be financial incentive for the city to grant that to them. I know we're getting the Smiths, and I think the city needs the Smiths, and it'll help out the city a lot in the long run. But the higher density and things like that, I think they can support that as well. So as long as that is just not, if we do want to grant that, I don't see, you go look at the Smiths and West Point, and I know the roads are not great in there, but I feel like it flows from commercial center to townhouses out to larger lots pretty efficiently, and I do like how they aligned. The other question I had for Malcolm, they mentioned something about the backside of those, the 30-acre lots that they have going along that'd be the north side now at the top, about those being 2 to 3 acre lots. How are those people, like if they do decide to develop, like are we gonna, how would they access, how would those, the back of that access, utilities and things like that, if those people do decide to do something, or maybe we don't even want to consider that, but most of the time in a development we plan like stub roads into those different parcels that could potentially have developments. I don't know if we need to have any of that conversation with them as well.
So you're talking out the north side, stubbing something, instead of just the one to the east and then the one to the west?
It's a fair comment. There's some large pieces back there that they mentioned infill that would probably be hard to facilitate without some type of stuff. So we can, we haven't done a formal TRC review on this, but Jerry's reviewed it and he didn't mention anything on interblock connectivity, but I'll have our engineer review it and see if we need to facilitate a stub to the north.
Maybe we don't, maybe those, the widths.
Yeah, we can look at our master transportation plan and consider it, but yeah, a little hard because they are existing lots, so we could at least discuss it for sure.
Well, now, because this is going to look different. Somebody brought that up in work meeting, that road that comes out to 5500, UDOT might not even allow that.
Yeah.
Because 5500 is going to widen with West Weaver Corridor or West Davis Corridor, or whatever they're calling that out here.
So they have that one at the end and the one up in the middle too? Or
47, it's 47, it's UDOT still, right? Or this is city right here?
47 is city.
Yeah, that's something I think the development agreement can do a better job contemplating. I'll work with Nick to make this integrated, but they call out some of the improvements here and some of the, but a lot of this will be UDOT. They'll need a cap permit and an encroachment permit. That'll all come as part of plat approval, but I would imagine UDOT has a 660 requirement. This road here is existing, yeah.
Yeah.
They'll need to meet that or get
so we were talking about the six-pack. I think something that makes a lot of people nervous is just what the sightline looks like, right? So if you drive through like Clearfield and some of these cities where it's closing in on you, but where they're actually looking at the higher density, you're not even gonna be able to see that unless you're in the middle of the higher density. So, you know, you might be able to see it from Smith's parking lot. You're not gonna be able to see it from 55 or 47. So you're not gonna get that kind of closed-in feeling. So I don't know if the difference between 4 and 6 really matters, unless somebody's just in there counting doors.
You're saying for the attached townhomes?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you.
What about patio homes?
I was with you, because there's nothing single,
That's
there
why
wasn't
I
like
asked him.
patio homes, but
That's why I asked him how many doors he needed to make this project work, because if you put patio homes in, can you make them work where them cottages are versus you know what they are, cottages, or
Yeah,
single family cottages? The seed?
well, I was looking at that on the map earlier, and I didn't really get a chance to ask him that, but the properties that are gonna remain, that's kind of I don't wanna call it a collision, but when you look at how dense that is backing up to 2-3 acre lots,
Yeah. You're there on
that's not gonna be
on the northeast corner?
Yeah.
And one of those you mentioned that he wants to rezone to split it, but like, how does that look? But how does that look, right?
Oh, yeah, up in the very northeast.
Corner.
Yeah.
So that road that is continuing there, just continue into that, and those two lots would be split right there, and they'd access it from,
47?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the different configurations they're talking about, and this is going to be unpopular with half the population here, but the change is coming. We got a big road coming. The growth is inevitable, and nobody wants, like in your heart of hearts, nobody wants more and more and more. But we've got to have affordable options, and we've got a chance to kind of control this before the state steps in and tells us exactly what we're going to do with it.
We also discussed having an agreement in there that it's, if they owner occupied for so many years. Now with JDC.
Yeah, I think that's a big deal, because yeah, you don't want
126
you don't
apartments.
want your rentals. That's not, if we're gonna do this type of density, we want people to live here and have kind of skin in the game for the city.
So Nick, is that, I know that the development they're talking about in Plain City's got like a 10-year deed restriction. How far can we legally go? I mean, we can't obviously say forever, but
Yeah, so it's what you put in the development agreement and then what you actually enforce on are kind of two separate issues. I'll address those.
okay.
So, by contract, contracts in perpetuity are frowned upon, so you can't have a forever contract. 10 years, 15 years, that sounds reasonable, I think that'd be easily defensible. The difficult part is like enforcing it, right? Because the city's not in a great position, no city I know, even large cities, Salt Lake City or whatever, they're just not in a great position to go around and knock doors and say, are you renting? Are you renting? You know, like it just. But the clause is nice, and the deed restriction is sure nice, and it does inform people about what they're going to do, and I think it's largely effective. So
Does that also cover short-term rental?
you can.
I guess it would, wouldn't it, if it had to be owner occupied?
Cities can. I think cities are more effective at regulating short-term rentals than long-term rentals, but we could certainly put those in the development agreement and put deed restrictions and those kind of things in place, which are helpful.
So Malcolm, one of the other things that we brought up when they were talking about too is lighting restriction, making sure that we've got some really good stuff in there as far as trying to keep the dark sky as dark as we can. And I know some of that's inconvenient, it gets expensive for them, but that would be something else we want to talk about.
know we addressed that at an earlier meeting that I was at, and they were amenable to that for sure, so.
They'll create, he has a fancy word for it, I think you call it a photometric plan, but they'll submit a photometric plan and a lighting plan, and we'll use that to make sure that, you know, it's adequate yet not too much, so we'll have to lean on them a little bit too. But another question, Nick, that got discussed a little bit, and just wanted to make sure the city has good perspective on the phasing element of this, how it relates to having a residential and then a commercial project go. The city has particular interest in the commercial project. The residential would obviously, I would consider a concession to facilitate it. Is there ways to help navigate that? Is the response we received with the developer there, we gotta let the market dictate these as they come in and help drive that, but
Yeah, I've written development agreements before they require, 50% of commercial before 50% residential or something like that. I mean, the developer's right, you gotta allow the developer some amount of wiggle room to keep the project going, and sometimes the residential sells faster than the commercial, but we've written similar clauses that have required the commercial to go first, and they've been successful.
In doing that, I guess maybe I'm a little naive, but what risks are we afraid of happening if we don't have that phasing agreement in there?
I think the general risk is that most cities have is you're going to grant not a lot, but you're going to grant density that you otherwise wouldn't, and then developers going to pull all those residential permits, build out the residential, and then just kind of sit on the commercial and try and sell that off, and the commercial never will materialize in the way that they sell it up front. How often that happens in practice, I don't know, because right now on the Wasatch Front, commercial real estate seems to be doing just fine. But that's the worry that cities have is you're gonna give them all this residential, they're not gonna build the commercial, then they're gonna come back and tell you, you just can't get anything to take the commercial space, so give us more residential.
their natural phasing plan and their confidence in the natural development process felt very aligned with a phasing agreement that would just shore it up. I don't see a big conflict, but I understand we don't want to overreach, but it just seemed like something we could shore up just for a reasonable protection. But I agree, it doesn't, I do think it should develop out well together.
It seemed like they want to push for commercial to anchor first, almost. I almost worry that's their kind of way in is to get us message. We'll do some housing around it. So I almost say it's almost the opposite of what you said. Is they want to bring a commercial and then they'll drag their feet maybe on the housing, maybe not. And so I think you're right. I think there needs to be some type of phasing thing, but also they make a good point is you don't want to handcuff them and say you have to do certain things. But so I think that's something to definitely talk about.
What I've generally seen is that they'll say before you can start the residential, you have to have 25% of the commercial done, or 30%, or something like that. And then usually a developer, and TerraStrata's a reputable developer, they've already got tenants lined up, and they're not concerned about that.
Nick, could I just throw one additional thing we used? And again, I'm sorry, this was a little piecemeal. We didn't catch in work meeting, and I'm glad you're here. But wanted to just give the Planning Commission ample opportunity to talk with you about the process. And I know we're going to flesh this out. You're obviously extremely new to our city, but generally it's kind of been divided right about here at the preliminary plat approval where we need a rezone. Our general plan requires an amendment to put this PUD zone that they're contemplating. Also probably to get the C2 fleshed out, the commercial. And that would likely require either updating our ordinance or housing it really well in our DA. But either way, those are the actions that will likely come to them within the next reasonable amount of time. I don't want to speak specifically on that application, but if they were to, for instance, submit for rezone, we have requirements to get that in front of you within a certain time frame, which could be pretty quickly. Obviously, they're going to want to build their application to an extent that you guys are comfortable with a good recommendation, but I know they're aggressively trying to move this After that, we'd have a preliminary plat and final plat approval. There's been questions and things that I need to work on with our legal counsel and things that we'll make sure are really well put together and constructed. We want to make sure that we, have the project fully housed, whether it be in DA or an ordinance format that's completely compatible and works well. And then also that these, the big thing here from my perspective is we have limited ordinances to support some of these things you're talking about. Seeing a lighting plan is a really good example. I'm not aware of lighting standards within our code. I don't know that we have one. We have to get that done, because once the rezone's done, I'm not so sure we can really enforce any of these lighting standards that are important to the functionality. And I agree, and Terrestrata is a great company. I think, you saw they're really, really knowledgeable, and I think they'll do a good project inherently. But it's good just to have it in have those standards in place. So those are things so with that, there are certain things we're going to require up front and that are reasonable prior to the rezone, and then there are other things that we're going to push off to the plat approval with some of the more heavier engineering that'll have some costs there that'll be done. But I just want to make sure you guys have a chance to talk and think about any questions when it comes to approval and the things that we can reasonably request at the different phases in approval. You'll get to see it again at preliminary plat, but your hands will be tied to an extent, I would imagine, at preliminary plat approval by what the rezone's been granted and what's in place as ordinances. So just a kind of a word bomb there why we're talking about this, and you got Nick here to answer any quick questions, but I want to talk about it.
Just have one bullet point. Probably the first bullet point in the process is the development agreement, and then the rezone.
So one of the questions I've got, I don't know if it's something we add to a developer agreement or where we put it, but when you think about the build out of this, can we restrict, or how do we determine, there's going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of large trucks moving equipment and product in there. How do we protect 4700 that we just finished resurfacing? It's a beautiful road, and you start running all that heavy equipment over it. Is that something we even need to worry about? Something we can restrict, like, hey, access for all this needs to come off of 55? Is that?
Are you talking about construction traffic? Or
correct.
Ongoing?
No, the ongoing, I know you can restrict ongoing as far as truck entrances, kind of.
Yeah.
But I'm talking mostly construction phase, because that's going to be a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as there's an access on 55, that can be part of the development agreement.
Quick question, can you go back to that, we had those bullet points? So I'm guessing they'll submit a rezone, which will then trigger, because the rezone that they're requesting doesn't follow our general plan. So that rezone will trigger the general plan amendment, right?
Yeah.
Correct. And once we kind of start going the rezone and they're kind of comfortable, we're comfortable with certain things, then they'll get a development area really heavy to make sure things follow. Or you say development area is going to be up front, even though we don't have rezone, because imagine they don't get too far in development area if we don't have warm fuzzies about a rezone.
They're going to have, the ideal way you do that is the city has the most leverage prior to the rezone, right? Rezone is a legislative decision. So if you contract with a development agreement, usually the concession that the city has, the contract, right? In the contract, I give you something, you give me something. The thing we give as a city is the rezone, is the zone. The thing they give is construction access, light plan, phasing, that all.
It's a fair point, though. That is something we've been balancing this whole process, and we're having the general plan update as a whole. That'll help us to require less upfront because we'll have good standards, and we still want to be reasonable, but there are certain things that we need to see to make sure they're in place before we grant a rezone, and there are other things that it hasn't been hard because they felt a little bit of pressure from us. How much money are we going to spend here prior to? Gratefully, we really haven't requested much yet. That we have a draft. DA, but at this point in time, we are going to go through that DA and say, okay, you've suggested, comfortably that these are items that you want in a DA, and we're going to ask for them to build those. And as you're well aware, they're going to go out and, have some costs to develop these standards that are going to be housed in these exhibits that they haven't put together yet. But so it's kind of a balancing act, and I'll obviously navigate that with Nick to make sure things we really feel we need are up front are good to be in the DA, and then we'll have other things that come down the road, such as probably a traffic study. I don't think, UDOT will require, but I think that'll come with plat approval rather than upfront, but some examples.
So on that note, the development agreement coming first, and I know this goes back to the CRA funding, but part of that development agreement was the infrastructure, and they're reading that first phase, it seems like the city was on the hook for a lot of those.
All of it.
Yeah, I just don't know, like, to me, that didn't seem, like, it seemed like the city, there was no mutual agreement, or like, hey, we're gonna do this, it's just like, well, you guys are getting the benefit of Smith's pay for all of this,
Yeah,
which,
in the development, this one we got, looks like the city was gonna be on the hook for about $3 million. Right off the get.
Yeah, estimates haven't been put together yet, but yeah, it anticipates that we jointly with them would facilitate financing mechanisms that would pay for largely all infrastructure. To this point, the lift station's been the primary discussion. We'll bring it to our city council and have heavier discussion. The way they formed or phrased it to me is that we just didn't want to feel like there was any, we don't know, they don't feel like the council's expressed fully the things they're open to or not. They don't want to limit them, they want it to be in there, but it'll get fleshed out as we go, the specifics of what are getting financed through us or not, but yeah, it does, it's
I guess that's a
strong
hard
approach.
hard for us to look at that and be like, oh yeah, this is a great recommendation without having details on it, which I know is like, they're sitting chicken before the egg, and so are we, so.
These TIF and CRAs, I get nervous with them just because you're putting a lot of tax burden on these new future homeowners. And they're kind of wild, right? Like you can build a lot of things with these incentives, but in my opinion, it works great for like a regional sewer lift station. Like that, in my mind, that's what it should be used for. It shouldn't be used for developers' main road into their thing, right? And so I think that's a good way to go forward, but really go much past the lift station that's regional for the whole area. Like the developments, in my mind, should be on the developer to pay for. But once again, that's kind of their stuff. But
The input's helpful, but yeah, we'll make sure we flesh it out as well as city council.
And Jay's ask was absolutely great point as well. And I don't know who researches this or how we start this process, but other developers in the area that are lined up and just kind of waiting for this project so they can hook into a sewer. How do we start that process of pioneering agreements with them? Because I don't think that's fair that they sit back and Hooper City, Weber County taxpayers, and Terra Strata end up paying for this, and then they come and hook into it with a basic impact fee. Was that in the form of a question? It was supposed to be. Okay.
Thanks, Dan. Worked on some pioneering agreements, and Malcolm and I work on those in the area, and kind of flesh out where we think those will be and what those will look like.
We also have the city council will work with Rob Sant and Cody Dieter for CRA agency creation and development. And that's something that I don't know how those can relate or play together. That's why we're working with some professionals, but that's something we can discuss with them as well. Is there a way to implement some pioneering? And Stuart, for instance, he's obviously an expert in his own right, said impact fees, you implement impact fees, and I don't know how those directly go back to paying your bonds, et cetera. I don't know, but we have an expert team that'll advise, so that's what we're working on.
yeah, Weber County, we run into issues where we have this collection to pay back, and then goes, but you can't call it an impact fee because it's now built. And anyway, I'm sure you'll get into this. One thing is, I think it's with this regional sewer lift station coming in and looking at the general plan, like Jay said, looking at these other these different properties around it, we really need to look at like, are these going to be rezoned to similar densities or stuff like that? Because what you don't want to happen is build this lift station with, this is this density here, but then across the street's still at acre and a half acre, and then in 5 years we say, no, you can down here, and then that lift station is no longer near the capacity of what it should be. So I think it might be good to kind of look at the surrounding properties to see if that's something we want to entertain as going a little more dense, or we're just going to stay the same as our future land use map says. So, just
That's a good question. Make it up as well. I think to summarize this comment, and I think Nick could appreciate this, the developer agreement feels like it's written as if it's very open to, it obviously contemplates tax increment financing or some other form of financing using, and it leaves it really wide open, and you know that we will be using this. I don't know how much we can work at the DA to have it be an option that because we have a land use decision in front of us, and that's important. And I can understand why it's a little bit difficult to maybe view it as, okay, I'm going to recommend this as land use, but I clearly see that there's some heavy financing and we'll work with council, but those could also be things that are options, and the language can maybe get a little bit less strong, that you could use those type of financing mechanisms, and you could come back for an approval for those, and give them the rezone that they've been seeking, and then let them go to work to look at some of these financing mechanisms, and also protect us with zoning, reverting, and things of that nature coming back to protect us, but them being able to go to work, because that's been the big expression from the development team, is we just feel like we can't even, explore CRA confidently without a rezone. So we want to meet them in the middle, potentially have the option to give them a rezone, but that doesn't mean that, that's the only option. They could continue with the project regardless, but right now they act like that's the primary option, that it could be the project's approved, you could look for those and get an approval for those as part of our CRA creation, but it could be a whole invert this whole thing on its head, and we'll talk through that. I'll talk through that with legal, and we'll try and have it be a little easier to swallow from a land use decision as well.
Any other discussion on the density or anything else in the agreement that we would want to see legal explore?
We talked about, on what were they called, the cluster cottages, we were talking about having to make sure that garages are actually usable. That was one of the things we were talking about, like when you look at some of these that are higher density, that they call it a single car garage, that basically turns into a tough shed because you can't actually get a car in or out of it. And that was something they took notes on as well. But I don't know if that's something we ought to just wait and see if they come back with, or we're just asked for.
Our engineering team hasn't actually gotten to do a review of this fully. There's some interblock connectivity that you brought up. That was something I'll put a note. That's a great comment, and something obviously they want to win. We want it. So
The other one I think is important is you don't just want like a 5-foot driveway either that you can't park a car on, like a ton of the stuff you see out in like on the golf course. Like your driveway has to be functional if that's where you're going to be parking your vehicle as well. So make that note in there.
Well, when we're talking about parking, can you pull that map back up one more time? Sorry, Matt.
that's fine.
Because that would also be my concern as well, is with the parking. So if you look down around the cluster units, you can see there's a little bit of parking. It looks like they've got a little bit right there. But is that something else we want to ask for with that many houses? Because to Jace's point, you're going to get one car in the driveway. If you've got up to 4 individuals living in that house, which you can legally have, where are they going to park cars? And we don't want them just on the street.
Yeah, I think we even have parking standards for a unit, a dwelling unit, and this isn't enough right here. So we'll address that.
Yeah, because is that something that we can say, look, around this kind of housing, there's just no on-street parking?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's something the fire district would look into. I mean, I don't know how wide they're proposing those roads within the townhomes, but 30 feet. Yeah, that fire district, oh, I see it. Yeah, that's something the fire district would say no parking at all, or at least down one side,
We can require them to disperse that parking, so it's not one parking lot that unit right next to it loves, but everybody else never uses. So maybe it's dispersed throughout as well.
When he was saying, sorry, he made a comment at work meeting about removing the road in the middle. Was he talking the one that connected into was he talking this road right there?
Yeah. That's what he was talking about, taking out, he didn't like that coming on to 5500. So does that mean all the way through or just to the commercial pad?
something, because we don't want all these resident logs in the way. We don't want people using the existing subdivision to the west there.
He's got
As their
it
main
40 feet.
access.
Isn't our minimum 60? What is our minimum?
60 feet.
Well, 6 foot right away, or, yeah, I guess that's, depends what he's calling that. Is that just the surface or?
We're 60 foot right away, that's.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, I will have my wheelhouse, but this is my first time seeing this one. Just for part of it as well, so
Yeah.
we'll have to get reviewing it.
Yeah, I just think access in the development agreement for the single family dwellings in towns, that's gonna be huge, because we don't.
Right now, they can just access it off
Off
that
of
road
there
and then
and
through the
out to
existing subdivision, right?
Yeah, and that's.
Yeah, there's some fencing there, some separation uses we might want to consider.
Yeah.
To talk a little bit more about that. Do you want to see access throughout the residential to the commercial? Do you want to see more blocked off? I mean, there's some walking connectivity obviously would be really nice. I don't know about, like you said, do we want people who are coming to their house going to, some good questions.
I think you probably may want something to divide, especially in the back of the grocery acre. And to me, that just seems like where hoodlums would hang out. Something like that.
There's a lot of semi-traffic
A lot
in
of
there.
semi,
right now.
yeah, I hate that.
With them switching to third acres all the way around, did that bother anybody butting up against those on the north side instead of the half acre?
No, but what that would require, as they talked, those lots north of that are acre, acre and a half. And if they ever want to develop it, then they've got to put their own road in.
Yeah.
I think the comment they made sense, where you don't want a half acre, big home right next to them. So I think if we say, no, we want half acre, then I think we have to shift everything down. Does that make sense? So the outside would be half, across the road would be third, and then, so I think if half acres are something we really want, then I think it's gonna push everything down. 'Cause you don't want half acres on that stuff.
And if we're really talking about affordability, like those smaller lots are just gonna be more affordable. That's what the market's tracking right now, so. Malcolm, do you have any other bullet points or anything that we didn't get to that you thought we might need to address?
There's a lot of work to be done on our end, so we'll let us get to work on our end and try to get it more buttoned up for you.
Okay.
But yeah, there's plenty to talk about for sure.
Anybody else have any comments?
Did you say we didn't have a lighting standard?
I think for commercial use, we probably have like residential homes
No,
requirements.
a little bit. 10-4E-6 talks about height of poles and.
Yeah, we imposed that on that, where we required, that one 30 foot, we did 25, is that, yeah, we maybe go 25. Those are other things besides height of poles, but it gets pretty technical as you saw him talk about it. I don't know, it was all over my head, but there's lumens and there's things that we need to.
Foot candles, that's my favorite one.
Yeah, I'll review that standard though, and see if there's anything else.
That and signs, I guess.
Yeah, we'll need a signage plan for sure. This will have a lot of signs, and then we can submit a signage plan that's standalone. We have sign ordinance for homes use and business, but I don't think we have a real robust one for commercial.
And
use.
do we have anything on landscaping? I mean, the big push right now is Zero or Xeriscape or whatever.
Yeah, they'll provide a full landscape plan that'll be required. They did mention in a prior meeting recently that they do very limited sod. They kind of do a Xeriscape approach, so we'll see how that looks as it's drawn up.
About design standards for the buildings, aesthetics, we have something like that in place.
No, we hope to rely on some of those elevation drawings that they provided. So one thing I did notice, for instance, when they provided them, you might have saw they provided some for the we'll need to see some building material, percentage of building materials, I call it out, but we'll need to see like how much of this is hardy, how much of this is stone. It seems like a lot of hardy on this building, for instance, etc. But we'll need them to call out those ratios. We'll have to, I think the idea was to rely more heavy on this, but with that we'll need a little bit of text. I see the material, but it'd be nice to see the percentages of primary versus secondary materials, things like that.
I like the idea of that one they were showing with the barn doors and more of a country feel.
Yeah, that was for the anchor tenant, right? Did you guys like the look of that one? Pretty good.
I just would hate for them to show us this and then come back, and since we don't have anything in place, we get a full cinder block building, and looks like Walmart.
And do you think we'll be fairly safe relying on some elevation exhibits that if we call out the percentage of materials, or?
Yeah, I've seen that work pretty well where you reference the exhibits that they presented and then also require, it's gotta be X amount masonry, X amount hardy board or whatever.
The other thing that I thought was the development agreement put a 20-year timeline on this project. Is that a common number, or is like that seem
That
kind
seemed
of
like a long
excessive?
time.
Yeah, like it seemed excessively long time for it to be there. The other thing is they said about the right to sell it to a different developer. Do we want to? Can we state language that the city has to be present to approve that sort of thing? I think that needs to be in there as well.
I can see them selling the residential, but not the commercial, you know what I mean? So, yeah, we got to put that in.
I'm gonna be really interested to see what they come back with for ingress and egress, because where they're moving those roads, and then it's gonna force everybody out there on 5500. Is it 5500 where they're gonna end up pouring out?
Well, the first thing UDOT's gonna do is put a damn median in there, and you can't make a left-hand turn.
Well, I'm talking about out the west side. No, they're
Oh,
gonna.
the west side?
Yeah, that's what, 5725?
It's all residential. Pull that back up. I thought that road stubbed all the way out to the existing residential.
So there's the lot. So there's 55. Oh, here we go. Well, but no, here's what I'm talking about, 5300.
So this will go down to 51, and then that.
There we go. What,
But because right now, you've only got one entrance
Right, so
here,
this would be on.
and then 5300. So if you look at, like on the Google, there's also a stub road,
right there?
3 houses out. Can we have them complete that? Because it just dead ends right here, but that would give another way in and out of that neighborhood.
Oh, so it doesn't complete that.
No, there's a fence right there, and somebody's got an ATV trailer parked against it.
Taylor and Jared are amazing with ingress, egress. We also have a little bit of awareness, but they haven't reviewed this. They have, but they haven't seen this site. The residential was never built out until tonight. It was always just PV, half acre, third acre, and we didn't. So I don't think they were supposed to have roads. I anticipate they'll probably have to drag something to 4,700, but we'll see.
Well, because that's something we've got to consider as well with that new highway coming in, because we have no idea if it's traveling on 51, which it's going to. We don't know if 5300 is even going to exist. Like we have no idea what 5100 is going to turn into. So then they can completely be blocked in and at another neighborhood that's blocked in.
Any other comments? All right, all in
It's
favor?
exciting.
I do
It's
think
fun to work on good projects. It's kind of
I think
exciting.
it'll be a good benefit to the city to have the tax revenue and things that could help us fund some of the improvements to the roads and things like that we're going to be bound to be faced with. No other comments, we'll move on to our citizen comment portion of the meeting. Citizens wishing to make a comment will be allowed 3 minutes. Please come to the mic, state your name, that you're a resident of Hooper City, and Jamie will be your flashcard letting you know when you're done.
Ray Hancock, love to listen to you guys. You guys are thinking this thing through very, very well. We appreciate that. A couple of things, in the work meeting, listen to 20-foot wide driveways, which I think we need. And I've done some stuff over in JVC in that subdivision. One of the things they mandated over there was that the driveways were long enough for a full-size pickup truck to park without being across the sidewalk. Okay? I would encourage you to look into doing that. So the biggest vehicle, not a motorhome, but a full-size pickup truck with a bumper hitch sticking out the back needs to be long enough to accommodate that. Patio homes, I think, having had several conversations with the state regarding moderate income housing, some patio homes would be really helpful here. And that's something that as you guys look into this, I would encourage you to get from the developer some price estimates maybe on what some of these smaller lots are going to be. Basically, to keep within state standards, we're going to probably have to find some places that are going to be 450,000 or less to even come close to qualifying for moderate income housing statute. Okay, that's something that is very real, as
Travis.
Mr. Travis, yeah, I know, but I was going to give you an official
I
title.
appreciate that.
Yeah, Bates stated, the state is, we need to keep them happy, okay? We don't want them coming in. Some of the townhomes over in JVC actually have built-in attached dwelling units into some of them. They are designed so that they could have another unit inside their own house, so something to look into. Owner occupied, definitely. 10 years minimum, I think. I've talked to some bankers, they said banks don't like to go much more than 10 years. So I'm thinking maybe look at 10 years. One water issue is we have lots of culinary water, that's not an issue. But secondary is obviously an issue. Xeriscaping as much as we can in conversations with the developer. I'm thinking we can get no grass basically whatsoever in the commercial, or very, very minimal amounts of grass. Another thing too on the lift station, Hooper City currently has 600 homes, maybe more than that are on the line with West Haven. They want us off. And so part of this lift station is going to be dealing with some of that. I'm fairly confident that we are running out of, or we are looking at a grant very seriously.
Sherry Bingham, and again, like Grace said, thank you so much for all you do. Really think seriously about some of these amenities. As you drive through different subdivisions, one of my favorite is Green Farm. We've gone through the JDC. One thing I mentioned before, over at Green Farm, they have what they call the barn, that little community center. And it's not a really large building, but it's big enough for a lot of things they do. They have the silo on the side of it, which would fit really nicely. They have a small playground, a pickleball court. Across the street is a pavilion. I would like to see somewhere where we could have Santa come to town, that we could have something there, some indoor space that if we needed to, but also some outdoor space. So really drive around and look at things. That's one of the benefits when cities say, okay, we will give you a density bonus, but what does the city get back in return? So I feel like you're really in an ideal spot that we can be planning something because we don't have anything like this yet. And so really drive around and look at different things and see if some different things that you might think that our residents would want. So again, thank you for all you do.
Any other citizen comment? Seeing no comment, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion from Commissioner Sever, a second from Commissioner Wilson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Recording.
Go to 2700 North and drive.
sign.